Chapter 2682. Actually, this was Yuning's misunderstanding. It wasn't that old Yu didn't care, but it was useless even if he cared. He had no way. This spirit beast was traded from Qianshan sect at a high price. It had been with Yuning since it was young. If there were any problems, old Yu would know. Even the Qianshan sect, which specialized in raising spirit beasts, couldn't do anything about it. What did old Yu have to do? He wouldn't waste any more time. But the situation was different this time. Lin Yi was able to kidnap the spirit beast of Qianshan sect, and even increase his strength. There was no way House Yu's old ancestor wouldn't be moved. Maybe Lin Yi really had a way to deal with this. Besides, this spirit beast was very important to Yuning. Old Yu knew it better than anyone. He didn't have a way before, but now he had a way. Even if he had to beg Lin Yi, he could only accept it. It was already midnight when Lin Yi got back to Donghai. He packed up Kai Gang and went to bed. He didn't care about Zhao Qibing and the hidden House Yu at all. It didn't matter much to him whether or not the two families fell out with each other. The next morning, Lin Yi was telling Ming Yao, Yushu, Han Jingjing and Xinyan about what happened last night. Lin Yi's phone rang. He picked it up. It was Boss Bai. Lin Yi quickly picked it up. Master Bai, you're looking for me? Lil, E. I found some information about your special constitution. Boss Bai sounded very excited. Also, there's news about the solution. Oh, really? That's great. What's the news? Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised as he asked. Ugh, it's just news. Boss Bai smiled bitterly. Aren't you being too anxious? So it's just news. Lin Yi smiled bitterly, feeling that he was too excited. It's good enough that there is news, and the news is very reliable. I only found a bit of news after reading a lot of ancient books that I brought out of the sect. Boss Bai explained. Thank you for your hard work, Teacher Bai. What is this news? Lin Yi said gratefully. Lin Yi, if it's possible, we need to go to Zhang Liju's tomb again. His research in this area should be stored on the bookshelf in his tomb. Bai Boss said. Oh, was this Zhang Liju's research? It's not in the notes. Lin Yi paused, not expecting to have to go to Zhang Liju's tomb. Nope. The notes are only notes about elixir. It's Master Liju's most important book. But a refiner might have multiple notes in their lifetime. For example, notes on strange things. Your constitution belongs to this category, Boss Bai explained. I see. Then this should be done as soon as possible. When are we going? Lin Yi was getting anxious after hearing that there was a way to solve his constitution problem. Anytime is fine this weekend. Then you can make the arrangements and we'll go together, Boss Bai said. All right, I'll make the arrangements. Lin Yi nodded excitedly. What? Something good happened? Why are you so happy? Meng Yao looked at the happy Lin Yi and asked. Lin Yi had been telling her about what happened last night. Although Meng Yao didn't say anything, she was a bit troubled by the fact that Lin Yi suddenly had a first love. Why was there another first love? However, Wang Xingyan didn't say anything. She just listened quietly, as if she didn't show much jealousy towards Yuning's appearance. In fact, Wang Xingyan understood her position very well. She knew that every day she spent with Lin Yi was one day less. If Lin Yi didn't have the ability to fight against the ancient sects, then she would still have to marry Kong Xiaolong. So this was already a good deal. It wasn't worth it to be jealous because of a first love. Xingyan didn't have that much time to think about these things. Haha. Master Bai has found a way to solve my constitution problem. I might be able to make elixirs in the future. Lin Yi didn't hide anything. He was familiar with everyone here. And Han Xiaoqiao had long since gone back to his car to read after breakfast. He wasn't interested in Lin Yi's adventures at all. He was a complete bookworm. Oh, so that's how it is. Ming Yao nodded. Then I have to congratulate you. Now you can see Xiao Xiao sooner. To be honest, I quite miss her. Xiao Xiao and Ming Yao had been enemies before, but the relationship between the two was very deep. Ming Yao hoped that she could come back soon. But I still have to go to Zhang Liju's tomb. I don't know if I can find a way, or if I can make it happen. Everything is still unknown. Lin Yi shrugged. Although the news was exciting, it was hard to say whether or not the notes were in the tomb. It's always good to have hope, Ming Yao smiled. Yeah, Lin Yi big bro is so strong. It'll be fine. Han Jingjing was a firm supporter of Lin Yi. Haha, strong or not. It has nothing to do with whether or not Zhang Liju left the notes. Lin smiled. Anyways, I think it'll be fine, Han Jingjing said. Meng Yao found it strange sometimes. Just what made Han Jingjing trust Lin so much. Last time, Han Jingjing was on the verge of death, but she still kept Lin Yi's secret. At first, she and Shu suspected that Han Jingjing had some ulterior motive for Lin Yi, but now it seemed that even if she did have ulterior motives, it was enough for Lin Yi to trust her and cherish her. At least, Meng Yao was very willing to let Han Jingjing and Lin Yi be together. This girl had nothing to do with the world, and she worshipped Lin Yi a lot. Meng Yao would be at ease if she was at home. There was no way she'd cause any trouble. After breakfast, the group went to school. After reaching school, Lin Yi planned to call Xiaoke, but the moment the call went through, Lin Yi suddenly remembered his identity. He was Lin Yi, not a male thief. But since the call went through, Lin Yi decided to tease Xiaoke a little. It was rare that Lin Yi was in a good mood today. Hello, Lin Yi. What's up? Xiaoke picked up the phone. Her head hurt, but she couldn't ignore it. She complained in her heart. Hadn't her brother told Lin Yi everything yet? Why was he still calling her? Chapter 2683. Today was May 20th, a holiday that wasn't considered a holiday, at least on 520 and 521 every year. It was a day for lovers to date or finally get married. It was said that on this day, couples would form a long line to register their marriage. Lin Yi had been in Songshan for more than 2 months. He had just recovered from Ma Zhu's injury. Early in the morning, Lin Yi arrived at school, but he realized that today's school was different from the past. On the school field, there were actually students who hung up banners and slogans. Lin Yi took a closer look. It actually wrote, 520 Heartbeat Memories Confession Before Graduation. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He was about to find someone to ask, but he suddenly raised his head and saw the dean, Wang Jifeng. So Lin Yi quickly waved his hand. Dean Wang, good morning. Are you free? I have something to ask you. Lin Yi classmate, what's up? Wang Jifeng saw that it was Lin Yi and quickly walked over to ask. What's going on in school? Is there some kind of activity? Lin Yi asked. Oh, today is May 20th, 520, which also means I love you. Every year, when the senior students graduate, they will spontaneously have a pre-graduation confession. This tradition has been going on for many years. At first, it was because of the popularity of a game called Heartbeat Memories. So the students will confess to the boy or girl they have a crush on the eve of graduation. Wang Jifeng explained. Lin Yi transferred here halfway, so it was normal that he didn't know the school's tradition. Oh, if that's the case, then the school doesn't interfere? Lin Yi was a bit surprised. He didn't think that Wang Jifeng would actually not interfere with this kind of student confession activity. It's considered a tradition. Also, this activity only allows graduating students to participate. Non-graduating students are not allowed to participate. Wang Jifeng smiled and said, Student Lin Yi, I'm not an unenlightened person. You should understand that. It's just that I'm strict with the students for their own good. Now that I was about to graduate, there were only a few days left before the college entrance examination. I naturally wouldn't interfere with such an event. After all, holding such an event at this time wouldn't affect my studies. Instead, it would help me relax. To relieve the pressure before the college entrance examination, whether the confession was successful or not, it was the best memory of a person's life. First love was always unforgettable, and I wouldn't be a sinner in vain. These students will regret it years from now. I see. Lin Yi nodded to show that he understood. Wang Jifeng was not an unenlightened person, or else he would not have found a lover. It seemed that the student's fear of him was misunderstood. Student Lin Yi, you can also participate in this activity. In order to facilitate the smooth progress of this activity, classes will be suspended in the afternoon. There will also be a day off tomorrow. Wang Jifeng said. Tomorrow, there will be a spontaneous traditional activity. Couples who successfully confessed will go on a trip together. Of course, those who didn't succeed, as long as both parties are willing, they can also participate. The school is organizing this for the good of everyone. It's to prevent these couples who have just confessed from doing something unexpected. before the college entrance examination. As the dean, my responsibility is to guide the students' views on love and values. Everyone will graduate soon, so I can't say much. I can only guarantee that before the college entrance examination, everyone can behave. Some things can't be rushed. If it affects the college entrance examination, it will be a big deal. As for after the college entrance examination, you will be a university student. Some universities can even get married. So why should I interfere? After listening to Director Wang Jifeng's words, for the first time, Linny felt that this person's image was very tall. Although he had some small shortcomings, he was serious and responsible for teaching students, which made Linny very moved. Director Wang, with a dean like you in the school, no wonder the first senior high school's results have always been among the best. It's really not easy to achieve the results of a private school like this. Hee. Wang Jifeng listened to Lin Yi's praise and grinned. It was not easy to make Lin Yi flatter him. Since Lin Yi knew his privacy, there was no need for Lin Yi to flatter him. Therefore, what Lin Yi said at this time must be true. How could Wang Jifeng not be happy? Director Wang, I will talk to Uncle Chu. You are a serious and responsible dean. Lin Yi said. Haha, Lin Yi classmate, thank you very much. Wang Jifeng was overjoyed. This sentence from Lin Yi could very well increase Wang Jifeng's salary. Lin Yi originally wanted to go to the school building, but after thinking about it, he turned around and left the school. He went to a flower shop near the school and ordered a bouquet of flowers. He was going to confess to Tang Yun in the afternoon. Although Lin Yi gave Tang Yun a ring before this kind of confession activity before graduation, Lin Yi still wanted to participate. Wang Jifeng was right. This was a beautiful memory before graduation. Although Lin Yi believed that he and Tang Yun could walk the path of love for the rest of their lives, the more memories the better. However, Lin Yi suddenly remembered that Meng Yao and Shu didn't need Lin Yi to accompany them this morning. They went to school by themselves and picked up Tang Yun. Could it be that they already knew about this 520 heartbeat memory activity before graduation? They were also going to confess to someone else? Lin Yi shook his head. He didn't think that Meng Yao would confess to someone else. There must be something else. In fact, Meng Yao sent Lin Yi away because she didn't want Yushu to say anything. This girl had been nagging Meng Yao for the whole night. Meng Yao couldn't sleep well at all. Yao sis, this is a confession before graduation. If you don't grab this opportunity, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Yushu continued. There is only one chance. If Tang Yun gets it first, we won't have a chance anymore. What do you mean we? If you want to confess, you can do it yourself. Why drag me into it? I already said that I am grateful to Lin Yi, but gratitude doesn't mean that I like him. Meng Yao said. Yao sis, you don't mean what you say. Yushu said. Whatever you say. It's your mouth anyway, Meng Yao said. Yao sis is guilty. Otherwise, if Shu said anything, you would have torn Shu's mouth apart. Yushu said. Are you asking for a beating? Meng Yao reached out her hand and pretended to hit Yushu. Chapter 2684. You go play with Tang Yun. Don't drag me along, Meng Yao said, troubled. Ah, Yao sis, how did you know I was talking about you? You must have something in your heart. That's why you said it, Yushu said, surprised. Tang Yun is here. Meng Yao pointed not far away and said helplessly. Oh. Yushu raised her head and saw Tang Yun walking over. She closed her mouth helplessly. Tang Yun, be polite when she's here. You promised me that you will be friends with her, Meng Yao reminded Yushu. Okay, I got it. I won't attack her. But it's hard to change if you change your attitude all of a sudden. Yushu said. Tang Yun walked over and opened the car door, surprised. She didn't expect Meng Yao to be the driver and not Lin Yi. Why? It's you guys? Where's Lin Yi? Lin Yi left first today. Shu and I will pick you up, Meng Yao said. Isn't today the school's traditional confession day? Shu wants to confess to Lin Yi. She wants to ask if you're okay with it. Ah, she wants to confess to Lin Yi? Tang Yun froze. She didn't know how to react to Meng Yao's question. Then why are you telling me? You're Lin Yi's girlfriend, so I need to ask for your opinion. Meng Yao didn't know if the question was for herself or for Shu, but she treated it as a question for Shu. Some things could only come out of her mouth when asked by someone else. This is her freedom. It would be a lie to say that Tang Yin didn't know that Meng Yao and Yushu liked Lin Yi. Tang Yin saw how much they cared for Lin Yi when Lin Yi was injured by Ma Zhu. Plus, when Lin Yi wanted to go back to West Star Village, Meng Yao also decided to go with him. If Tang Yin didn't notice anything, she would be too insensitive. She was a girl, and there were some things that she understood more than Lin Yi. Although Meng Yao had always said that she didn't like Lin Yi, Tang Yin felt that even if she didn't like him, she would still have feelings for Lin Yi. And Yushu would definitely like Lin Yi. Although she already knew about it, she didn't know how to respond to Meng Yao's words. She was also a traditional girl. How could she accept all of this at once? As a result, she wasn't able to go back to Star West Village with Lin Yi. She was a little disappointed, but at the same time relieved at the same time. After all, Meng Yao and Yushu couldn't go back with them. In school, Lin Yi was only Meng Yao's follower and bodyguard. But in what capacity would they be able to stay by Lin Yi's side after returning to Star West Village? They might have been friends at first, but as time went by, they became friends. They would definitely become lovers. Would Tang Yin accept it or not? If they didn't accept it, could they chase them back? Of course not. Tang Yin could only accept it. Even though she was mentally prepared, Tang Yin still felt conflicted. Alright Yin, I was just joking with you. Don't take it seriously. She was like this, always saying that she likes Lin Yi. But if she really liked Lin Yi, she would have done something with Lin Yi a long time ago. A man and a woman living together in a villa. Do you think they would still be like this? Meng Yao was just testing Tang Yin. Seeing that Tang Yin didn't know what to do, she changed the topic with a smile. Oh, I know. Tang Yin nodded. Although she was relieved, she still felt that there was something wrong. Was Meng Yao just comforting her? However, Tang Yin had already prepared for the worst. Some things, the more you rejected, the more problems there would be. It was better to let nature take its course. Lin Yi's choice was Tang Yin's choice. Tang Yin got in the car. Meng Yao started the car and drove to a gift shop. What are we doing here? Tang Yin asked curiously. She was going to confess to Lin Yi in the afternoon. Yin, do you want to get one too? Meng Yao asked. Me? I don't think so. Tang Yin forced a smile. She was Lin Yi's girlfriend, but she had to confess to Lin Yi with Yushu? She felt conflicted no matter what. She might as well not confess at all. Oh shoo, just buy a card then. Don't buy any gifts, Meng Yao said to Yushu, noticing Tang Yin's disappointment. Oh, Yushu listened to Meng Yao this time. She didn't say anything, and went to the gift shop. After a while, she came back with a red card with a big heart on it. Tang Yin pretended that she didn't see it. She was silent on the way to school. She didn't say anything when she reached school. She just walked to class 9 quietly. Looking at Tang Yin's back, Meng Yao felt her heart ache. She shouldn't have let Shu continue like this. She snatched the card from Yushu's hand. Yao, what are you doing? Yushu asked curiously, startled. You don't have to give this card. You can confess anytime you want. You don't have to do it today, Meng Yao said. Oh, Yushu was a little depressed. Small wives don't have human rights. You know you are a small wife now. Can't you be more obedient? Small wives don't have human rights in front of the big wife. Meng Yao humphed. Then Yao, if you admit that you are the big wife, I'll listen to you. Yushu said. Then I'll admit it reluctantly. Meng Yao said casually. Oh, recording finished. Yushu raised the recording pin in her hand happily. I'll play it for Shield Bro. He doesn't know that I'm talking about his big wife. Meng Yao curled her lips. Doesn't he know now? You confess without being pressed. Yushu said. Meng Yao was speechless. She snatched the recording pen from Yushu's hand. I'll let you record it. Yushu's joy turned to sorrow. Meng Yao passed the heart-shaped card to Lin Yi, asking Lin Yi to give it to Tang Yin in the afternoon. Lin Yi was a little puzzled. The miss went out so early in the morning just to buy a card for him? Wasn't her concern for him a little out of the ordinary? In the afternoon, the school field became extremely lively. However, basically, the third-year students stood separately according to their respective classes. Although there were many people watching the fun, there were still very few who actually went on the stage to confess to the person they liked in front of the whole grade. Chapter 2685. What Linny didn't expect was that the first person to go up was Pinliang. Yao Yao, on this special day I confess to you. I like you. And I swear that one day, I'll make you my girlfriend. Pinliang wasn't very cultured, and his declaration of love was very simple. But with his opening, the atmosphere heated up instantly. Unfortunately, Meng Yao didn't go up to give a response. Pinliang's confession failed. This situation was within Pinliang's expectations. He didn't think that Meng Yao would accept his confession, but he wasn't too sad. He shook his head and walked down from the stage, leaving with Xiaofu. He didn't know what they were going to do, but he didn't have the face to stay after the confession failed. With Pinliang's opening, things got a lot more lively. 3 or 4 more students went up to confess, but only one succeeded. Looking at the girl's eyes, it seemed like the two had been together for a long time, and the confession was just an excuse. But up until now, no girl had come up to confess. It was all boys. Actually, there were girls who had crushes on other boys, but they didn't go up because they were too embarrassed. What was even more unexpected was that the first girl to confess was Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao walked up the stage and picked up the microphone very naturally, not showing any stage fright at all. I know that my confession this time won't work, but I've been waiting for you for a long time. So I've been waiting for you. But in order to be a role model for all the girls, I've decided to be the first. Linny watched as Xiao Xiao went up. His heart tightened. This girl wasn't going to confess to him, was she? If he'd known this would happen, Linny would have confessed to Tang Yun first. It was supposed to be a good thing, but Xiao Xiao's interference changed everything. Xiao Xiao's name was still very famous. The little witch had left for 2 years, but now that she was back, most of the 12th grade students still remembered her. So whether it was flattery or sincere cheering, everyone cheered. As for me, I'm going to confess to someone today. I'm sure that this person knows that I'm confessing to him. I know that he won't accept my confession on stage. That's why I won't say his name. Xiao Xiao looked in Lin Yi's direction and smiled. All right, my confession is over. Let's continue. With that, Xiao Xiao walked down the stage casually. Xiao Xiao's confession surprised Lin Yi. At the same time, he felt that this was really a strange and smart girl. She didn't say Lin Yi's name on this occasion, but her purpose of confession had been achieved. She didn't want to embarrass herself. It would not bring any trouble to Lin Yi, which made Lin Yi feel that. Xiao Xiao was hard to deal with. He didn't know what this girl was thinking. After Xiao Xiao's confession was over, Lin Yi didn't wait any longer. He walked up to the temporary gymnasium, ready to confess to Tang Yun. Lin Yi had replaced Zhou Ruoming and Pinliang as the new Big Four, and pretty much everyone knew about Lin Yi and Tang Yun. So when Lin Yi got on stage, the crowd started chanting Tang Yun's name, helping Lin Yi. Tang Yun's face was very red. She was surprised by Xiao Xiao's confession as well, but Xiao Xiao had obviously left some leeway so that it wouldn't embarrass everyone. Tang Yun had a good impression of Xiao Xiao. Tang Yun got on stage under everyone's chanting, and Lin Yi didn't say anything either. He just handed the heart card and flowers to Tang Yun. All the words he wanted to say were in this card and flowers. Tang Yun blushed as she accepted the card and flowers, but when she picked up the heart card, she was a little surprised. Tang Yun clearly remembered that Yushu bought this card this morning. Wasn't she going to confess to Lin Yi? Why did she give the card to Lin Yi? Could it be that Lin Yi gave it to her? Tang Yun opened the card curiously and saw that it was Lin Yi's handwriting. It was simple, but it tugged at her heartstrings. Can't forget the summer, the shade, the ring, the promise. One short line, but it expressed Lin Yi's heartfelt feelings, as well as Lin Yi's lifelong promise to her. Tang Yun planned to treasure this card forever, put it in a frame, and put it on her bed. But this also proved that this card wasn't a prop for Yushu to confess to Lin Yi. It was a real gift to Lin Yi. There was no meaning to it. Tang Yun looked at Ming Yao and Yushu, a look of gratitude in her eyes. No matter what, she was very satisfied with today's confession event. Both Xiao Xiao and Yushu hadn't messed around, and they hadn't messed around with her. Yushu looked at Tang Yun's figure on stage, a little envious. Yao Yao, it's all your fault. You didn't let me go up there. Otherwise I'd confess to Shield Bro. He'd definitely accept it. Keep dreaming, Mengyao said disdainfully. If he doesn't come up, I'll tell him about how he kissed me and saw me naked. Yushu said. You can tell him if you don't think it's embarrassing. Mengyao said casually. Oh, forget it then. Yushu sighed and mumbled to herself. I'll leave sooner or later anyway. I'm just a passerby. I just want to leave behind a beautiful memory. What did you say? Mengyao didn't hear it clearly, not knowing what Yushu said. Nothing. Yushu shook her head and sighed. Mengyao didn't understand what Yushu was talking about, and she didn't know that after a certain amount of time, she, Tang Yin, Xiao Xiao, and Yushu would all leave one by one and reunite with them one by one. This period of high school had turned into a beautiful memory. Recalling it in another time and place, he was filled with emotions. But no one could predict the future, not even Prophet Shu. Otherwise, the four of them confessing to Lin Yi would make this memory even more beautiful. The confession event ended satisfactorily without any trouble. Jifeng let out a breath of relief. Tomorrow's event would be the last group activity before graduation, and Jifeng would participate the whole time. He didn't want anything to happen. Chapter 2686. Haha, Xiaoka. I just had nothing better to do, so I called you. Lin Yi really didn't have anything to do this time. It was the male thief who wanted to go to Zhang Liju's tomb, not Lin Yi. Ah, nothing. Xiaoka's face darkened. She was right, Lin Yi really did have feelings for her. Otherwise, why would he call her for nothing? Xiaoka didn't have a good impression of Lin Yi. But Lin Yi wasn't someone who had nothing better to do. Yeah, but I do have something to do. Are you free this Friday night? Lin Yi asked. Huh? This Friday? Xiaoka paused, stunned. Was Lin Yi asking her out? Was he asking her out on a date? Going out for dinner? What was meant to come had finally come. I have some ideas for the future of the orphanage that I want to talk to you. If you don't want to go, then forget it, Lin Yi said faintly. I'll go. Xiaoka gritted her teeth. Haha, that's fine. I thought you didn't want to build the orphanage anymore. Lin Yi felt that teasing Xiaoka was quite interesting, especially after having two identities. Lin Yi had a weird sense of humor when Xiaoka flipped out. But for dinner, I'm a big eater, so I won't go if I don't have enough to eat. Let's get this straight. How much are you going to pay me? Xiaoka asked. 1,000, that should be enough, right? Lin Yi didn't expect Xiaoka to say this, but he answered anyway. 1,800, that's not enough. It's not even enough to fill my teeth. It's at least 18,000. Is that okay? Xiaoka asked back. Lin Yi was speechless. 1,000 became 18,000, but Lin Yi didn't mind it too much. He nodded. Alright, 18,000 is fine. See you this weekend. Xiaoka hung up the phone and sighed helplessly. What should she do now? What should he do? Should I make it clear to Lin Yi then? But what if Lin Yi stopped building the orphanage out of anger? But if he didn't make it clear, could it be that he had to submit to Lin Yi? If that happened, Xiaoka wouldn't feel good about it. What about the male thief? Xiaoka was in a dilemma. But just as Xiaoka was in a dilemma, her phone rang again. She thought it was still Lin Yi. But when she picked it up, she realized that it was an unfamiliar number. Xiaoka picked up the phone, confused. Hello? Is that the Flying Sparrow heroine? Lin Yi pretended to be the male thief's voice. He used the school's public phone to make the call. Since he was pretending to be the male thief, he naturally couldn't use his phone number. Ah, you're a male thief? Xiaoka heard the voice and the way he addressed her. She immediately realized that the caller was a male thief. She was extremely excited. Male thief, it really is you? I've missed you so much. You finally called me. Lin Yi didn't know what to say from Xiaoka's sudden change in attitude. Wasn't this change a little too fast? After calming himself down, Lin Yi said, It's me, male thief. Why are you looking for me? Xiaoka asked. Or do you miss me? Why don't you call me? It's like this. I want to go to Zhang Liju's tomb again to get something. Do you have time? Do you want to go with me? Lin Yi asked. Yeah, I'll go with you. Xiaoka didn't even think about it before agreeing to go on a date with Lin Yi. Her gloomy mood was swept away. Alright, let's go this Friday night. We'll go together, Lin Yi said. Alright. What? Friday night? Xiaoka paused. She remembered that Lenny asked her out, and her heart skipped a beat. Why did Lenny have to ask her out now? Of all the times, why did he have to ask her out now? It was the same time as the male thieves. What's wrong? Do you have something to do? Lenny pretended to be surprised. Oh, nothing. It's just that a friend asked me out for dinner. It's also Friday. Xiaoka didn't want to lie to the male thief, so she told him the truth. Friend asked you out for dinner? Boyfriend? Lenny purposely asked. If you don't have time then. Don't never mind, he's not my boyfriend, he's just one of my pursuers. Xiaoka quickly said. But I don't like him anymore. Oh, I didn't say never mind. What I meant was, why don't you eat first, and we can leave after dinner? Lenny said. But if you don't like him, why are you still going out with him? Wasn't it because I had no other choice? Xiaoka said gloomily. He's the biggest donor to the orphanage. At first, I thought that he just wanted to help the orphanage, and that's what he said. But later, he seemed to be interested in me, and I was afraid that he wouldn't continue donating to the orphanage, so I could only agree to his request to have a meal with me. I see. But Xiaoka, to be honest, you should consider it. He must really like you if he keeps donating to you. He's someone who cares about you. I think you'll be happy if you're with him, right? Lenny said, trying to sound like a gentleman. But I only like you. Xiaoka said. If I didn't know you, I might consider it. But now, I really don't want to be with anyone else. Xiaoka said. Don't worry. I'm actually tricking him. I asked him to give me 18,000 to treat me to a meal, and I'll treat him to a roadside stall after I get the money, and then I'll take the rest, hee hee hee. I see. Lenny sweated as he listened to Xiaoka's evil laughter. This girl wanted to trick him, and now she told him. That's right, that's right. Then I'll look for you after the meal. Call me halfway, and I'll find an excuse to leave, how's that? Xiaoka asked. Call you? Lenny thought, I'm eating with you, how can I call you? I don't have a phone, and it's troublesome to call you. So why don't you find an excuse yourself? I see, that's fine, I'll think of something. If he doesn't let me go, I'll keep tricking him, and when he runs out of money, he'll let me go. Xiaoka said. Chapter 2687. Tang Yuqi's invitation, however, Lenny didn't think much of it. Wasn't it more interesting this way? If Xiaoka fell in love with Lenny, it would be a very difficult challenge. Lenny felt that it was a good game. To be honest, Lenny quite liked Xiaoka, and he didn't want her to continue like this. This girl would do anything for the children in the orphanage, and she even did some dangerous things. Lenny was afraid that she would die if she wasn't careful. Alright, it's settled then. I'll wait for you at the entrance of the orphanage. Whoever gets there first will wait for each other, Lenny said. Okay, I'll see you there. Xiaoka said happily. Okay, see you there. Lenny shook his head and hung up. On the other side, after confirming the time with Xiaoka, Lenny called Boss Bai and told him that they would leave on Friday night. He told Boss Bai to prepare in advance. Boss Bai was fine with it as well. Lingshan received another call from Tang Yuqi. Lingshan had been playing along with Tang Yuqi, secretly observing his character. But Tang Yuqi wasn't a normal person. He was a detective, and he'd already noticed that Lingshan was hiding something from him. Because Tang Yuqi was a detective, he didn't act rashly. He used the care and patience of a detective, and decided to become friends with Lingshan first, and then slowly find out the truth. Miss Song, are you free tonight? I'd like to treat you to dinner to thank you for your help all this time. Although I haven't heard anything from my second uncle, I'm very grateful that you've been helping me ask around, Tang Yuqi said. Lingshan hesitated. Tang Yuqi's words were so dignified that she couldn't reject him. Miss Song, you won't reject me, right? Tang Yuqi smiled. Alright then. Lingshan actually wanted to observe Tang Yuqi's character and understand his true intentions and background, so she agreed. After all, Tang Yun's matter wasn't a small matter. She couldn't just tell Tang Yuqi about it. The dinner was arranged at a Western restaurant near the police station. Western food was synonymous with romance here, and most of the people who went there were couples. Lingshan and Tang Yuqi eating at a place like this would cause a lot of misunderstandings. Lingshan wanted to refuse, but Tang Yuqi was a Westerner who had just returned from overseas, and eating Western food would be as normal as eating at home. So Lingshan agreed. During dinner, the two only talked about Tang Yuqi's family. Lingshan didn't mention anything about Tang Yin and Tang Jucheng, but Tang Yuqi wasn't in a rush to ask. It was as if he was expressing his gratitude to Lingshan, and this made Lingshan sigh in relief. But through this dinner, Lingshan realized that Tang Yuqi wasn't a bad person. She didn't know if he was just acting or not. Lingshan wouldn't open her mouth before she had a proper understanding of the situation. Time flew, and it was Friday night. Linny carried a big backpack and went to Songshan in Boss Bai's car. Linny didn't drive. If he did, it would be easy for Xiaoke to see through him. Boss Bai had a car as well, so he got in Boss Bai's car. In his backpack, Linny had the Skybolt Pig and Thousand Silk mask. He didn't bring the male thief's mask. There was no need for it. I'll go visit her grandpa with Xian later. You go eat first, call me when you're done, Boss Bai said to Lin Yi. All right. Lin Yi nodded. Lin Yi, be careful. Guan Xian heard that Lin Yi and Boss Bai were going to the tomb. She couldn't help but feel nervous. Lin Yi had been there once before, but she knew how dangerous the tomb was. She was worried because of the lingering fear. It's fine. This time is different from last time. With experience, and with Skybolt Pig, it shouldn't be a problem. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had quite a lot of confidence. In fact, the second time he went to the tomb, it was because he met Skybolt Pig that the journey was very smooth. After all, Skybolt Pig's familiarity with the tomb far exceeded Lin Yi and Xiaoke's. That's good. Guan Xian let out a breath of relief. She was a little envious of Xiaoke. She could go on an adventure with Lin Yi, while she could only stand at a distance and watch Lin Yi. Guan Xian didn't ask for much, but she still hoped that she could become someone who could help Lin Yi, someone who could be useful to Lin Yi. Guan Xian swore to herself that she'd learn alchemy and help Lin Yi in the future. She'd become someone useful to Lin Yi. Otherwise there'd be too many pretty girls around Lin Yi who'd only have pretty faces around him. Mr. Bai, have you thought about what I told you last time? Lin Yi asked. You're talking about recovery? Boss Bai immediately understood what Lin Yi was talking about. Yes, that's right. Lin Yi said. If you want to recover, there's no time like the present. Let's do it before we enter the tomb. I've thought about it. If it's possible, I'd naturally want to recover. But wouldn't that be a burden to you? Boss Bai hesitated for a moment and asked. I know that the spiritual energy of a cultivator is not for nothing. It is cultivated through hard work. I know that better than you. I'm afraid that it takes a lot of spiritual energy to heal someone. You've just treated Jing Jing. Do you still have the energy to care about me? Plus, we're going to explore the tomb soon. Wouldn't that affect the plan? That won't happen. Lin Yi shook his head. We're all on the same side here. And I'll be honest with you. I can help you recover, and even recover your strength. But because of my level restriction, I can only restore your strength to Mystic Late Phase Peak. Eat a small Qi gathering pill, and you'll be able to reach Earth Class Early Phase. But you'll be stuck there for the time being. Oh, what do you mean? Boss Bai was briefly stunned. Then he said, Are you suggesting that you can help me improve my capability to the peak of the late phase of the Mystic class? After I take a minor Qi gathering pill and become an Earth Class expert, I won't be able to level up again? You could say that, unless you have a Qi gathering pill. Lin Yi said. Chapter 2688. You Xiaoke's treat, that's right, that's it. Maybe when I become a Sky Class, I can raise your strength to Earth Class Late Phase Peak. Lin Yi said, That's a drawback. If you don't agree, then I can only heal your injuries, and you can train on your own. That way, you won't be restricted. Train on my own. Boss Bai smiled bitterly after hearing Lin Yi's words. You don't think that my training on my own will be faster than you helping me, do you? When you become a Sky Class, I probably won't even be able to step into the Mystic Class. Compared to the Earth Class Late Phase Peak, it's naturally easier for you to help me. But you used to be a Heaven Class Late Phase Peak, right? Lin Yi didn't even need to ask to know that Boss Bai must have been a Sky Class Late Phase Peak Master. Otherwise, how could Boss Bai not be a Sky Class Late Phase Peak Master? if even his disciples were sky-class late-phase peak masters. Boss Bai was the head of the Five Elements sect. You're right, but you have to figure out how I got my heaven-rank late-stage strength. First of all, that place is rich in spiritual energy, and there are countless treasures. There are all kinds of elixirs and cultivation resources. Naturally, the speed at which I improve my strength is not the same as now. Boss Bai explained. Back then, my training could be said to be 1,000 miles a day, but now it's not bad to be able to reach 1 mile 1,000 days. There's no comparison at all. That's true. Lenny nodded. He had forgotten about this before. Boss Bai was no different from a solo cultivator now. If he trained on his own, there wouldn't be any effect at all. And in that place, thinking about how little 1 and little 11 didn't even care about the energy stones in Sun Jingyi's hands. Just how rich were the training resources in their sect. Although the energy in that energy stone was almost used up, if it were any other cultivator, they wouldn't let it go, right? But in the eyes of little 1 and little 11, it was just trash. So, if possible, please help me and Xinshin to improve our strength. If Xinshin cultivates with me, she won't be able to achieve much in her life, unless... Boss Bai paused and did not continue. You're right. You're right. You're right. What's wrong? Lenny was slightly taken aback. Nothing. Boss Bai shook his head. There are some things that you'd better not know for now. Lenny nodded and didn't ask any questions. That's right. That's my plan for Guan Xian. I'm going to raise her strength all the way until she's the same as Jing Jing. As for you, if you've made up your mind, then there's no problem. I'll raise your strength first tonight. Thanks a lot. Although Boss Bai had guessed the result, he was still thrilled that Lenny agreed in person. You don't have to thank me. You and I are master and disciple, and the disciple will do his best to heal his injuries. Plus, you're going to risk your life for the tomb, because of my constitution? Lenny smiled and waved his hand. Hee, then I won't say thank you. Actually, apart from helping you, I also want to go to the ancient tomb to take a look. After all, this is the ancient tomb of our Five Elements sect's founder. Boss Bai said. As they spoke, the car arrived at Guan Xuemin's villa area. Lenny followed Boss Bai and Guan Xian out of the car. Lenny wanted to visit Guan Xuemin first before going to find Xiaoke. Guan Xuemin was very excited when he found out that Lin Yi, his granddaughter, and his old friend were coming today. He was waiting at the entrance of the villa, and when he saw Boss Bai's car, he went up immediately. Old Bai Lil, Yi Xinshin, you're back, Guan Xuemin said. Grandpa. Guan Xian hadn't seen her grandpa for a long time. She missed him very much. Xinshin, how was it? Were you obedient in Grandpa Bai's house? Guan Xuemin asked with a smile. Grandpa and granddaughter met, old friend met, and it was a happy and harmonious reunion. Lenny didn't stay for dinner because he had a date with Xiaoke. Lenny carried his backpack and left the villa. He didn't drive, but walked to the orphanage. On the way, Lenny called Xiaoke. Xiaoke was in a state of restlessness today. She was a little afraid that Lenny would call, but Lenny finally called. Hello. Xiaoke saw the caller ID of Lin Yi and sighed in her heart. She picked up the phone. Xiaoke, it's me. Lenny said. I'm at the entrance of the orphanage now. Where are you? I'll go out then. Xiaoke answered helplessly. She thought to herself, if it's a blessing, it's not a curse. Okay. Lenny nodded with a smile. After a while, Xiaoke walked out of the orphanage and saw Lenny standing there with his backpack. Xiaoke felt strange. Why didn't Lenny drive his car here? Xiaoke, you're so pretty. Lenny looked at Xiaoke. She had obviously dressed up today, but Lenny knew that she was dressing up to give herself another identity. It wasn't the current Lenny. Oh, Xiaoke replied faintly. Lenny guessed right. Xiaoke was dressing up for the male thief. After eating with Lenny, she probably wouldn't have time to dress up, so she had to dress up beforehand. I'm not dressing up for you. Haha. Lenny didn't mind at all. Lenny knew the truth naturally. He wouldn't argue with Xiaoke about it. What Xiaoke didn't know was that Lenny was laughing at her sarcasm. Just how thick was this guy's skin? Where's the money? Xiaoke couldn't be bothered to argue with Lenny. She reached out her hand. Lenny smiled and took out 2 stacks of money from his pocket. He was about to count out 20 bills from one of the stacks and give the rest to Xiaoka. But Xiaoka snatched it away from him. "What are you doing?" Lin Yi asked. "No need to count, keep the change." Xiaoka didn't wait for Lin Yi to reply. "Didn't you want to treat me to a meal? Let's go, I'll take you there." "Oh, okay." Lin Yi nodded and followed behind Xiaoka. The two turned here and there and came to a small alley. It was a food street in Donghai City. There were all sorts of snacks on this street, and it was very lively. Chapter 2689. What's in the bag? Noodles? Can you eat 18,000? Lin Yi had guessed Xiaoka's intentions, but he was still speechless when she brought him here to eat shaved noodles that cost a few yuan a bowl. "I didn't say I'd finish it today. I'll eat the rest tomorrow and the day after. I'll finish it sooner or later if I eat it every day, month after month," Xiaoka said nonchalantly. Xiaoka said nonchalantly and waved at the boss. "Boss, give me 2 big bowls of knife-shaved noodles." "Sure, do you want meat and eggs?" the boss asked. "No need." Xiaoka shook her head. "What about the side dishes?" the boss asked. "I don't want it either." Xiaoka rejected. "I think the side dishes here are pretty good. Why don't we get one?" Lin Yi looked at the side dishes. They were pretty good, especially the side dishes. The red oil was very tempting. "I don't want it." "Then I want one for myself," Lin Yi asked. "You eat it yourself. It's not your treat," Xiaoka said. "All right, I'll pay for it myself." Lin Yi guessed that Xiaoka was a stingy person. He stood up with a smile and asked the boss to bring 2 plates of side dishes. He then paid for the 2 bowls of noodles. The side dishes and shaved noodles were placed on the table at almost the same time. Xiaoka picked up the chopsticks and started eating the side dishes without hesitation. She didn't even have time to eat the noodles before she finished all the side dishes on the table. "Didn't you say that the side dishes aren't good?" Lin Yi sweated as he looked at the way Xiaoka was wolfing down the food. He felt a little sad as well. Xiaoka was handling tens of millions of dollars at a time, but judging from the way she was eating, she probably didn't have anything good to eat. Otherwise, she wouldn't be wolfing down the food like a wolf. "Oh, the usual ones aren't good. Today's is pretty good. Don't tell me you don't want to treat me because I ate too much? Then I'll go." Xiaoka looked at Lin Yi. Her face not red nor her heart skipped a beat. "Then you eat." Lin Yi smiled and called for 2 more dishes, but Xiaoka glared at him. "You want so much. Wouldn't it be a waste if you can't finish it?" Xiaoka stopped the owner and only asked him to add a side dish. Squeak squeak. Skybolt Pig smelled the aroma of the food and started to squeak. This little pig had been living with Lin Yi for a long time, so it started to eat human food. After all the true qi it cultivated came from Lin Yi, so it didn't need to eat any natural treasures anymore. It didn't have much to eat, so it just ate human food. Unexpectedly, this little guy became addicted to it. Other than pork, it even ate dog meat. In the end, it was beaten up by General Weiwu. Lin Yi furrowed his brows, startled. This heavenly lightning pig was really good at causing trouble. What was it shouting at this time? Didn't he want Xiaoka to notice him? As expected, Xiaoka heard the squeak and looked at Lin Yi strangely. "What's in your bag? Why is it making weird noises?" "Oh, it's an inflatable toy," Lin Yi said casually as he raised his fist and punched the bag twice. The pig squeaked again in pain, but this time it didn't make any more noises. Inflatable toy. Xiaoka paused and thought it was an inflatable doll. She scoffed. Disgusting. She couldn't blame her for thinking wrongly. Lin Yi was already so old, and there was no way he'd buy a child's inflatable toy. The only thing he could play with was an inflatable doll, and one that could make noises. And so, Xiaoka naturally thought that the jijiji sound was the sound of an inflatable doll seducing a man. How shameless, an inflatable doll could say dick? Lin Yi was confused by Xiaoka's scolding. Why was it disgusting to have an inflatable toy in his bag? However, Xiaoka naturally wouldn't explain it to Lin Yi. She just wanted to finish eating quickly and spend some time with Lin Yi. Although she knew that Lin Yi was probably looking for trouble and finding an excuse to eat with her, she still asked cautiously, "Lin Yi, don't you have a development plan for the orphanage that you want to talk to me about?" "Oh, the development plan for the orphanage." Lin Yi nodded. He did consider this seriously, and he didn't mean to lie to Xiaoka. There are more and more children in the orphanage now. Have you considered letting them go to school? Go to school? Xiaoka paused, recalling the past. Going to school was something the children of the orphanage yearned for. Once upon a time, Xiaoka envied the children who were able to go to school, but she knew that the orphanage wasn't rich enough to pay for their tuition. She buried the thought in her heart and never mentioned it to the dean. What do you think? Lin Yi's eyes lit up, and his eyes lit up. But now that Lin Yi brought it up, Xiaoka couldn't help but think about the future of the children in the orphanage. In the past, when the children were young, they would take on the responsibility of the orphanage when they grew up. Just like Xiaoka and Ken, they became the workers of the orphanage, dedicating their youth to the other children in the orphanage. It wasn't that this wasn't good, but there were more and more children in the orphanage now. There would be more and more children in the future, and the orphanage wouldn't need these people. What were these children going to do? Many of these children had congenital diseases, and even if they were cured, their bodies were much weaker than normal children. Without knowledge and skills, and with poor health, what could they do in society? People wouldn't even want them to move bricks at construction sites, right? People had to be strong and experienced to move bricks. And these children couldn't do it at all. How were these children going to survive like this? The orphanage couldn't take care of them for the rest of their lives, could it? The orphanage's expenses were very tight right now, and it was a joke to take care of these children for the rest of their lives. Xiaoka started to think about the future after Lin Yi reminded her. That's right, these children can't be like you, becoming thieves when they grow up, right? You don't want them to be like that, right? Lin Yi asked. Are you looking down on me? Xiaoka glared at Lin Yi. Nope, I wouldn't treat you to a meal if I looked down on you, Lin Yi said. I'm telling you this because I want you to get out of it as soon as possible. Girls age easily when they're too tired. And I don't want you to become an old woman too early. Chapter 2690. I don't know what to say with your attitude. Lin Yi shrugged and said angrily. Fine, Lin Yi, what do you want? Xiaoka was helpless. What do you want me to do? Do you really have to force me? I told you that I have someone I like, why are you? Oh, I didn't say anything then. Lin Yi lowered his head and ate his noodles, not bringing up the topic again. Xiaoka gritted her teeth in anger, but there was nothing she could do. She didn't want to compromise, but there was nothing she could do. She panicked, and her tears started to fall. Her tears were like raindrops dripping down into the bowl. Lin Yi didn't think that Xiaoka would cry. This strong girl actually cried. How wronged was she? Lin Yi didn't think that his joke would hurt Xiaoka so much. Lin Yi couldn't bear it and sighed. I'm going to talk to Pengzhan Industries and let the children of the right age go to school. Currently, Pengzhan Industries' first high school only has a middle school and doesn't have a primary school yet. If there's a need, I'll suggest them to open a primary school for the orphanage. Is that really possible? Xiaoka heard Lin Yi's words and didn't care about her tears anymore. Her mind was on the children in the orphanage. She raised her head and looked at Lin Yi with her big watery eyes. Then, you don't have any additional conditions, right? Additional conditions? Lin Yi paused and understood what Xiaoka meant. He shook his head and smiled. No, it's all for the orphanage. That's good, thank you. Xiaoka stood up and bowed to Lin Yi. Lin Yi, you are actually a good person, I know that. If I didn't have someone I like, I would definitely be with you. But now I really have no other choice. I'm sorry. Is this a good person card? Lin Yi touched his nose and asked. I don't know. Xiaoka shook her head. I won't give up, Lin Yi said. I knew it. Xiaoka lowered her head helplessly and glared at Lin Yi. Fine, up to you. I'll send you back. Seeing that Xiaoka was almost done, Lin Yi didn't want to sit there anymore. After all, this was a food street with a lot of customers. Lin Yi and Xiaoka occupying a table would affect the boss's business. We can go now. That's great. Xiaoka stood up and waved her hand. It's fine. I'll go back myself. Go do your stuff, don't worry about me. Okay. Lin Yi smiled. It seemed like Xiaoka didn't want to stay with him for even a minute longer. However, Lin Yi didn't want to send Xiaoka back. He needed to find a place to wear his clothes inside out and put on the 1,000 silk mask. You aren't sending me back? Lenny answered so quickly that Xiaoka felt like it was unreal. Didn't you say you didn't want me to send you back? How about I send you back? Lenny asked. It's fine, I'm leaving. Bye. Xiaoka shook her head and left quickly. Lenny left as well, but he didn't go in the same direction as Xiaoka. Lenny found a place with no one around and put the clothes on inside out. This was the type that could be worn inside out, very suitable for traveling in the wild. Lenny also wore the 1,000 silk mask on his face. At this moment, Lenny became a stranger, exactly the same as when he was at the practitioner's market. After doing all this, Lenny came to the orphanage again. Xiaoka was already waiting there. Male thief. Xiaoka saw Lenny from afar and waved at him happily and excitedly. She must have been looking forward to seeing him for a long time. The gloominess from eating with Lenny was gone, and she looked like a completely different person. Lenny smiled bitterly and walked over. Flying Sparrow, are you ready? I told you to call me Xiaoka. Why are you calling me Xiaoka? Why are you calling me Flying Sparrow? It sounds so distant, Xiaoka said as she looked up and down at Lenny. You came alone? You didn't drive? She didn't know why, but Xiaoka felt that this male thief looked familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. Especially his backpack. But he didn't seem to be carrying this backpack last time. It was understandable that Xiaoka didn't think of Lin Yi. She didn't even pay attention to Lin Yi's clothing before. Why would she pay attention to a person that she disliked? Xiaoka, I came with someone. This person is one of my masters. He'll drive over later, let's wait for him, Lin Yi said. Oh, your master? Xiaoka paused. Lin Yi introduced her to his master. Did that mean he approved of her? Xiaoka had lost her parents at a young age, and her brother wasn't by her side either. She grew up thinking that her master was the most important thing in the world, and Lin Yi bringing her to his master meant that he approved of her. Xiaoka was very excited. And I just found out that he's Zhang Liju's heir, so I wanted to go to the tomb to take a look. Lin Yi didn't tell Xiaoka about his constitution. After all, it wasn't a secret that Lin Yi could talk about, especially with his identity as a male thief. It wasn't something that Lin Yi could do. Doesn't that mean you're Zhang Liju's heir as well? We're going to rob a tomb. Xiaoka jumped and stuck her tongue out. Does that count as betraying my master? Of course not. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Even if Master Zhang Liju was still alive, he'd probably be very happy that his disciples and grand-disciples were going to rob a tomb and get his teachings. After all, everyone wants their sect to be able to last for a long time. He'd only be happy that we got his life's work. That's true, Xiaoka nodded. Then I don't have to worry. Right, did you eat tonight? I did, Lin Yi replied casually. Oh, I ate too. What did you eat? Xiaoka asked. Lin Yi was observing the cars on the road, and when he saw Boss Bai's Audi driving over, Lin Yi said absent-mindedly, Didn't we just eat knife-shaved noodles together? What did you say? Knife-shaved noodles? Xiaoka paused. Oh. Lin Yi realized that he was spacing out, and quickly said, I said I was eating knife-shaved noodles with my master. His car is here, let's go. Chapter 2691. Sorry to keep you waiting, right? Boss Bai didn't recognize Lin Yi's mask, but he recognized Lin Yi's clothes and backpack, so he naturally stopped the car and got off. Xiaoka turned to Lin Yi. What did he call you? Oh, my real name is Lu Yi. Lin Yi randomly made up a name for himself. Lu Yi? Oh, Xiaoka nodded. His name was so similar to Lin Yi's, but his character was worlds apart. If Lin Yi was 1/10 as good as Lu Yi, she wouldn't have to treat him like that. In reality, Xiaoka was blinded by love. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and Lin Yi and Lu Yi were the same person, but she treated them as two extremes. Boss Bai knew that he had made a slip of the tongue. Lin Yi told him that they had to hide their identity when they went to the tomb, but he pointed out Lin Yi's name right away. Luckily, Lin Yi reacted fast and made up a name for himself. On the surface, there didn't seem to be any flaws, or else he would have been exposed. This is Boss Bai. You can also call him Teacher Bai. Lenny didn't give Xiaoka too much time to react as he introduced Boss Bai. Hello Teacher Bai, I'm Lu Yi's friend Xiaoka. Yu Xiaoka bowed to Boss Bai gently and respectfully. She was a completely different person from her usual impulsive Yu Xiaoka. Haha. Hello, I've heard he mention you a lot, Boss Bai said politely. He didn't have to worry about saying the wrong thing now. Is that so? Xiaoka was pleasantly surprised. Even the male thief's teacher mentioned her a lot, so the male thief must have a good impression of her. Let's go now, Boss Bai said. We'll scout the area tonight, and we'll enter the tomb tomorrow morning. Okay, let's go then. Xiaoka nodded and got in the car with him, sitting in the back seat. Lenny directed Boss Bai to drive. This time, Lenny didn't enter the tomb from the robber's hole, but from the exit, which would save him a lot of time and wouldn't be too dangerous. Under the guidance of Lin Yi, the car quickly arrived at the nearest place nearby. They had to walk the rest of the way. Lin Yi and the other two got off the car and walked towards the exit of the ancient tomb. All three of them had very good stamina. Although Boss Bai was no longer a warrior, walking a long distance was not a problem at all. It was just that his speed was not fast enough. An hour later, the three of them arrived at the open space in front of the exit of the tomb. It's here. Lin Yi pointed at the entrance of the tomb. Gigi, Skybolt Pig seemed to have felt the aura of the tomb, and he felt like he had returned home. He immediately cried out excitedly in Lin Yi's bag. Lin Yi just remembered that he'd forgotten to summon the Skybolt Pig. He'd forgotten about this little guy. Skybolt Pig was probably having a hard time. He was beaten by Lin Yi earlier, so he didn't dare to make any noise along the way. He endured it until they reached the entrance of the tomb, and finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He called out to remind Lin Yi of his existence despite the risk of being beaten again. What's that sound? Xiaoka looked at Lin Yi confusedly. Why did it sound so familiar? It seemed like... Oh, it's Skybolt Pig. Lin Yi quickly let out Skybolt Pig to divert Xiaoka's attention. Lin Yi realized that it wasn't that easy to disguise as two people, especially in front of the same person, and when Lin Yi didn't pay much attention. It's this little fellow. I haven't seen him for a long time. I miss him. As expected, Xiaoka's attention was immediately attracted to Skybolt Pig. She picked up the little fellow and looked at it affectionately. After a while, she was shocked. He's already a mystic class late phase peak spirit beast? Haha, I can help others increase their strength. Didn't you know that back in the tomb? Lin Yi asked. Back then, Xiaoka wasn't familiar with Lin Yi back then, so she didn't ask him in detail. She wasn't clear about it now, but it didn't matter. She was shocked. You can help spirit beasts increase their strength? Then why don't you do it to Sky Class? Lin Yi was speechless. I'm already at my limit. I can't increase it any further. Oh, Xiaoka nodded. Lin Yi's words brought her back to reality. Yeah, it was a joke to be able to increase a spirit beast to Sky Class. Lin Yi quickly set up the tent. Lin Yi brought 2 tents, one for him and Boss Bai, and the other for Xiaoka. The food was compressed biscuits. After the tent was set up, Xiaoka thought that Lin Yi would be in the same tent as her. She was a little excited because Boss Bai was a teacher, so naturally he would have his own tent. Naturally, she would be with Lin Yi. But what she didn't expect was that Lin Yi and Boss Bai would enter the tent together. Male thief, you guys together? Xiaoka wasn't satisfied. She finally had a chance to be alone with Lin Yi. Even if they didn't do anything, they could at least talk to each other. I'm helping Master Bai heal. He's a little injured. Xiaoka, if you're not tired, you can help us too. Lin Yi said. Okay, then I'll sit next to you. Xiaoka was happy again. Although she couldn't talk to Lin Yi too secretly with Boss Bai by her side, she was satisfied as long as she could be with Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't say much and sat cross-legged with Boss Bai in the tent. He held the pulse on Boss Bai's wrist, while Xiaoka looked at Lin Yi's healing method curiously. Male thief, you're using pure qi to heal you? Xiaoka was curious. She was an external practitioner, but she knew a little about internal practitioners. Are you guys able to heal each other because you're from the same sect? Or are you able to heal everyone's injuries? Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Are you guys able to heal each other because you're from the same sect? Xiaoka, Lily is healing me. If you have any questions, can you ask him later? Don't disturb him? Boss Bai jumped, afraid that Xiaoke would disturb Lin Yi. Chapter 2692. Haha, it's fine. Lin Yi didn't mind. Lin Yi was multitasking right now. He was healing Boss Bai, observing the situation outside, and chatting with Xiaoke at the same time. When he entered the jade space, he'd practice multitasking. He had to make sure that he wasn't in danger when he was healing, so it wasn't a big deal if he had to talk to Xiaoke. As for what you said, whether or not I can heal others depends on the situation, Lin Yi said with a smile. Lin Yi didn't say anything definite, because he didn't want to promise Xiaoke that he wouldn't be able to do it. Nothing was absolute, and Lin Yi didn't dare to guarantee anything. However, it seemed that Udake was very loyal to him. Udake didn't tell Xiaoke the details of Lin Yi healing him. Otherwise, Xiaoke wouldn't have asked this question. No, it was messed up again. Lin Yi shook his head. Lin Yi was the one who healed Udake, and his current identity was the male thief Lin Yi. Oh, do you have a way to heal my injury? Xiaoke felt that she was asking too much after asking. Lin Yi might have to pay a huge price to heal Boss Bai, but it was his, and he wouldn't complain about it. But would he do the same for her? We'll see. Lin Yi didn't agree right away, because he didn't know the past of the orphanage's director. From his perspective, there should be an unknown story behind the director, just like Faubert. Before Lin Yi figured out the pros and cons, he couldn't act rashly. Otherwise, if the director's enemies found out and tracked him here, wouldn't that cause trouble for him? Okay. Xiaoke could hear the perfunctory tone in Lin Yi's voice, but she was satisfied. After all, Lin Yi was a complete stranger to her, and asking a stranger to heal another stranger was a bit too much. Since Lin Yi said that he would wait and see, he must have taken her relationship into consideration. That was why he said that. While they were talking, Boss Bai felt that his wounded veins were recovering at an unbelievable speed. Boss Bai was adept at alchemy and pharmacology. He knew that no elixir, not even the ultra-quality Great Recovery Pill, could have such a rapid and marvelous effect. It was beyond his imagination. Any elixir was more awesome than he had imagined. No wonder Lin Yi said those words with such confidence. It turned out that Lin Yi had the confidence. In fact, the first level of the art of dragon mastery was already amazing when it healed people, and the second level was even faster, which was why Boss Bai was so shocked. Done? You're completely healed? Boss Bai stood up in disbelief and moved his body. He found that his wounds were all healed. It was unbelievable. His chronic illness was suddenly gone. Boss Bai didn't know what to say. Done? So fast. Xiaoke was surprised as well. She thought that healing Boss Bai was a daily task, and that it would be a long process. But now, it seemed that Boss Bai was healed in just a short while. If Xiaoke didn't know the male thief's personality, she would have thought that Lin Yi and Boss Bai were scammers. Not to mention healing internal injuries. Even normal injuries couldn't be healed this quickly. Haha, it's alright. Lin Yi said. Don't worry about your injuries. It's good that you know that I can heal people, but don't tell anyone. It's not good for me if more people know. Yes, don't worry, I won't tell her. Before you decide to heal me, I won't tell her either. Xiaoke quickly guaranteed. After the tomb robbery incident last time, she had a better understanding of how evil people could be. She naturally knew that some people were greedy, and if she told anyone about the male thief, it would bring him a lot of trouble. Alright, Master Bai, should we continue to increase your strength now? Lin Yi asked. No. Don't you need to rest? Boss Bai was a little surprised. Lin Yi had just healed him, and it must have used up a lot of qi. He was surprised that Lin Yi wanted to increase his strength now. No need, we can do it now. Lin Yi said, hurry up and start. Let's try to finish it before the sun rises tomorrow. You're done so soon? Boss Bai was even more surprised. He only realized today that Lin Yi's ability was far beyond his imagination. In time to come, Lin Yi might really be his hope to revive the Five Elements sect. Yes. Lin Yi nodded. Teacher Bai, you just need to start channeling your practitioner's arts now. You don't need to do anything else. There'll be some pain when you level up, but you'll be recovering your strength, so the pain should be less. Okay, I understand. Boss Bai nodded and started to use the martial arts according to Lin Yi's instructions. Lin Yi grabbed Boss Bai's pulse and started to use the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. Boss Bai felt a stream of pure qi flowing into his meridians. Boss Bai was shocked, but he quickly started to work hard. It didn't take long for Boss Bai to enter the golden class from a normal person, becoming a golden class master in the early phase. Boss Bai didn't hide his strength at all, and this change in strength made Xiaoke speechless. But in the next moment, Xiaoke's shock turned into admiration. Not only could this male thief heal people's injuries quickly, but he could also increase their strength quickly as well. If this was real, would she be able to return to her peak strength when she wasn't injured? The old dean of the orphanage looked like an old lady, but Xiaoke knew that she wasn't very old. She was only 40 years old, and if she took good care of herself, she would look very youthful. But the old dean's face was full of wrinkles. This was all caused by internal injuries that blocked up the meridians in her body, and the dean had forcefully recovered a portion of her strength, causing her body to age prematurely. If Lin Yi could heal her injuries and recover them, she'd probably be many years younger in an instant. In fact, Xiaoke's guess was right. Grandma's son was like this. After Lin Yi healed her, she looked like she was only in her early 30s, completely different from the old scavenger. Chapter 2693. Although Lin Yi said that he could speak when he was channeling his practitioner's arts, Boss Bai couldn't. He didn't want to be distracted, afraid that his meridians would be blocked again. Early phase of golden class, early phase peak, mid phase of golden class, late phase of golden class, late phase of golden class, late phase of golden class, early phase of mystic class. Boss Bai's strength kept increasing, and Xiaoke's expression changed from shock and admiration to expressionless now. She was used to it. There was a saying, shock and surprise, you'll get used to it. Naturally, Boss Bai was used to it as well. He was numb to leveling up, and he finally believed Lin Yi when he said that he could go all the way to mystic class late phase peak. Finally, Boss Bai felt that Lin Yi had stopped transferring qi, and his strength stopped at late phase peak of earth class. He stood up and let out a long breath. I, Boss Bai, am back. Can my master recover this strength as well? Xiaoke looked at Lin Yi hopefully. Yes, Lin Yi nodded. As long as I'm sure. Thank you. Xiaoke nodded gratefully. She knew that if it was possible, Lin Yi would do it. He wasn't someone who made promises easily. Is it really that amazing? I recovered just like that? Boss Bai only felt that his body was full of energy, and he looked a few years younger. And here's a small qi gathering pill. Take it. Lin Yi took out a small qi gathering pill and gave it to Boss Bai. This isn't too good, right? I'm already very grateful, and I still need your pill. Boss Bai was a little embarrassed. Master Bai, aren't you Lu Yi's master? Why are you being so polite? Xiaoke felt strange. In her eyes, it was perfectly normal for a disciple to give something to his master and help him heal. There was no need for too much explanation. But Boss Bai was so grateful that it didn't seem like they were master and disciple. Even teachers can't accept things from students casually. Boss Bai shook his head. All right, Mr. Bai, I've already said it. Why are you still so polite? Lin Yi forcefully stuffed the small qi-gathering pill into Boss Bai's hand. Well, if that's the case, I won't stand on ceremony. Boss Bai took a deep breath. He took the pill and swallowed it. A pure stream of true qi spread out from his dantian. Boss Bai hurriedly held his breath and operated his inner force mantra to dissolve the medicinal effect of the pill. Xiaoke looked at the white boss enviously and whispered to Lin Yi, "Male thief. I want to practice spiritual qi too. Can you help me?" "Sure." Lin Yi didn't hesitate this time and directly agreed. "But do you have a suitable cultivation method?" "Ah yes. My brother said that my family has a secret art that has been passed down from generation to generation. It's suitable for girls to learn." Xiaoke said, "That's the spiritual art. Can you help me increase my strength?" "That's possible." Lin Yi nodded. "But why doesn't your brother practice it?" "Right. Since when did you have a brother?" "Oh, I didn't get to tell you yet. I found my long-lost brother. His name is Udake. He's a guy that I really hate, A guy who's chasing after me. Sigh. Although I'm very grateful to him, I already have you in my heart. I can't agree to him. Xiaoke sighed lightly. Oh, what's his name? Lenny asked, pretending not to know. He almost exposed himself today, so he had to clear his name. Otherwise, Xiaoke would find out sooner or later. Never mind, you wouldn't know him even if I told you. Let's not talk about him. Xiaoke didn't say Lin Yi's name. She was afraid that the male thief would cause trouble for Lin Yi. Lin Yi was quite strong now, and Xiaoke was afraid that the male thief wouldn't be able to fight him. Let's talk about my family's secret art. This spiritual art is pure Yin, and I heard that it's a very powerful ancient art. Men can't practice it, only girls can. Oh, that's quite magical. It should be a special art, or else it wouldn't be called a family art. Lin Yi knew of some weird arts that could only be practiced by specific people. For example, Xiaoxiao's and his, weren't they also pure yang arts? Girls couldn't practice it, which was the opposite of Xiaoke's. Yeah, it's quite magical, Xiaoke said. My brother said he'll find a chance to give it to me. Okay, I'll help you look into it. Lin Yi nodded. Xiaoke did need to increase her strength a little, or else she'd be too weak, and always doing dangerous things. Lin Yi really couldn't be at ease. Xiaoke was very happy. The male thief didn't give her a direct answer about her master, but he agreed to help her without hesitation. Xiaoke felt that the male thief really cared about her. Boss Bai was a patient man, and while the breakthrough of the small rejuvenation pill was a little painful, he didn't show any signs of it from his expression. If it weren't for his strong willpower, he wouldn't have been able to last until now after losing all his meridians. Thank you. Boss Bai, who had broken through to Earth class early phase, said to Lin Yi gratefully. But with my current strength, I can only make yellow class 2nd level pills. I can't make yellow class 3rd level pills yet. The chi supply can't keep up. Lin Yi nodded. Boss Bai was a 2nd level golden class refiner, and with the addition of Guan Xan and Han Jingjing, it wouldn't be a problem for Lin Yi to refine a 3rd level elixir if that combined practitioner's arts really worked and Lin Yi could practice it. The only limitation was that each practitioner could only practice one type of practitioner's art. Lin Yi couldn't change the one he was practicing. I told you, no need to thank me. Lin Yi waved his hand. It's already daylight. Should we rest for a bit before going, or should we go straight? Let's go straight. I'm full of energy right now. I don't need to rest at all. Boss Bai said, plus I can't wait. What about you, Xiaoke? Lin Yi turned to look at Xiaoke. I'm fine. I also rested for a bit before. Xiaoke shook her head, indicating that she was fine. Chapter 2694. The weather was already very cold, and after they entered the tomb, a gust of cold air hit them in the face. The inside of the tomb was even more eerie. Xiaoke took out a searchlight and shone it on the path in front of them. Skybolt Pig had lived here for hundreds and thousands of years, and he was very familiar with the environment here. With Skybolt Pig leading the way, they didn't have to worry about any danger. In fact, when Lin Yi went back from here last time, he didn't encounter any danger. Although there were hidden weapons on this path, they were all attracted by the rain and sparks. These were all one-time use mechanisms, and they wouldn't have any effect after being used. So very quickly, the 3 of them arrived at the life and death door. Although the inside of the tomb was eerie, it was smooth. Boss Bai was very excited. He knew that it was Lin Yi and Xiaoke's 2nd time here, but he didn't expect it to be this smooth. Now, where should we go? Boss Bai asked excitedly. This is the death door. It's where Zhang Liju's coffin was, and it's also where Skybolt Pig used to live. There's nothing inside, but this is where Zhang Liju used to store his belongings. My fushi needles and chi gathering pellets were all found here. Lin Yi said, let's go find the stuff first, and then pay our respects to Master Zhang. What do you think? Alright, I'll listen to you. Boss Bai wanted to pay his respects to Master Zhang first, but he knew that Lin Yi was worried about his constitution, and so he wanted to find the book on constitution first. In terms of seniority, Lin Yi was Zhang Liju's disciple, and Boss Bai was a disciple of many generations. Although Lin Yi respected him as his master, Boss Bai didn't dare to ask too much of Lin Yi. Then let's go and have a look, Lin Yi said as he walked forward with Boss Bai to the bookshelf they had been to before. He then said to Boss Bai, Master Bai, take a look and see if there's anything on it. Lin Yi took a quick glance at the bookshelf and didn't see Zhang Liju's medical notes. But he didn't know if there was a record of Zhang Liju's strange happenings. Lin Yi didn't have any recollection of such a book. Boss Bai nodded and searched carefully on the bookshelf. From the beginning to the end, he did not let go of the titles on the spines of every book. There weren't many books on it. It wouldn't take Boss Bai much time to read them from the beginning to the end. After reading them, Boss Bai shook his head and said, No. Oh, then let's go to the showroom again. Lin Yi didn't have much hope. He just wanted to start from the beginning. Just as they were about to leave, Xiaoka exclaimed, what's wrong? Xiaoka. Lin Yi turned around and looked at Xiaoka. Someone touched this bookshelf. Xiaoka pointed at one of the books at the bottom of the shelf. He said, What? Someone touched it. Lin Yi felt a chill run down his spine. Although Lin Yi was a practitioner and wasn't afraid of ghosts, he couldn't say that it didn't exist. However, it couldn't be said that this thing didn't exist. Otherwise, where did the damn thing in the jade come from? Yes, Xiaoka said solemnly. This bookshelf probably hasn't been touched for thousands of years, so there's a layer of dust on the spines. But look below this book. Lin Yi and Boss Bai bent down at the same time. They looked at the book Xiaoka was pointing at. And as expected, on the empty wooden shelf in front of the book, there was a mark of someone moving it. There was a mark of someone moving it, because there was a layer of dust everywhere. Only the front of this book had a vertical groove. Someone must have pulled out the dust from the front of this web page recently and removed it. Seeing this, Boss Bai didn't feel anything, but Lin Yi felt a chill run down his spine. This tomb. Did someone else come here? When they first came here, no matter if it was Xiaoka Old Hay or Yu Huixing, none of them touched the books. Yu Huixing checked the names on the books carefully, but didn't touch them. Lin Yi remembered this clearly, but now there was a book here that had been moved from the marks. This book had been put back no more than 3 months ago. This could be seen from the markings on it, so it couldn't be from the last time they came. The only explanation was that someone else came in, took this book, and put it back. But what was the purpose of doing this? Xiaoka's breathing quickened as well. The few people who knew about this were all captured and sentenced to death. She and the male thief definitely didn't come back. Could it be Yu Huixing or the female thief? Lin Yi thought of Yu Huixing as well, but this person was as cowardly as a mouse. There was no reason for him to come back alone. Plus, everything was taken last time. So what was the point of him coming back? Plus, Lin Yi heard that Yu Huixing was under house arrest by the hidden house Yu. Even if he wanted to come out, there was no chance. Whatever, let's see what this book is first. Lin Yi said. Xiaoka took the book out, and Lin Yi kept an eye on the jade. Luckily there was no movement, which meant that there was no danger. Lin Yi was most afraid that this book was a trap set up by someone else to lure people in. This was a book written by a wandering doctor. But when Lin Yi flipped to the first page, he realized that something was different. This book was indeed a record of strange stories of wandering doctors. But the empty space in the book was filled with handwriting. All of it in tiny handwriting. It was the same handwriting as the one in Zhang Liju's elixir refiner's notes. Evidently, this was written by Zhang Liju as well. This is it. This is the record of strange tales of the patriarch. Boss looked at the book in Lin Yi's hands excitedly, and pointed at the words on it. Master Zhang added on to someone else's records of strange happenings, giving his own unique insights. And the problem of a refiner's physique was mentioned in this records of strange happenings at the very beginning. It's normal for Master Zhang Liju to add to it after reading it. Chapter 2695. If this watch net was taken away, then this time, even if they turned the tomb upside down, they would not be able to find what they wanted. Let me see the problem about your physique now. While talking, Boss Bai did not waste any time. He took out the flashlight and carefully read the content of the Chronicle of Peculiar Tales. Lenny and Yushioka did not dare to disturb him. They quietly waited on the side, waiting for Boss Bai's result. Time passed very slowly at this time. Although Lenny only waited for half an hour, it felt like half a day. Finally, Boss Bai put down the book, nodded heavily, and said to Lin Yi, "In this note, the Grandmaster explained the problem about the physique of a cultivator in detail, and gave the way to verify it." "Oh, what do you mean?" Lenny asked quickly. "The physique of a cultivator is divided into 3 types: true attribute, false attribute, and false attribute. The true attribute is an inborn attribute. No matter how many attributes there are in the body, they can be well integrated and circulated. This is inborn, so there will not be any conflict between each attribute. Even if there is a conflict, it will also form a cycle in the body, and will not bring any trouble to the cultivator." Boss Bai said, "True attribute, false attribute, false attribute?" Lenny pondered for a while and thought of Bing Tang's false ice heart jade bone physique, so he hurriedly told this to Boss Bai. "Is this the false attribute mentioned in the book?" "Yes, this is the false attribute." Boss Bai nodded and said, "This attribute is also inborn. It exists in the body of a cultivator when he is born. However, before this attribute is activated, it will not cause any impact or conflict with the real attribute in the body. When it is activated, it can be activated with the corresponding elixir. For example, the Ice Heart Jade Bone Elixir can be used to activate this branch of the water attribute, which is the ice attribute. After activation, the false attribute is no different from the real attribute. If the cultivator has other attributes in the body, there will not be any conflict, and these attributes will form a new cycle." "I see. What about the false attribute?" Lenny suddenly understood. No wonder the Ice Heart Jade Bone pill was so important to Bing Tang. It turned out that it could change the physique, turning the fake Ice Heart Jade Bone physique into the real Ice Heart Jade Bone physique. The so-called virtual attribute is that the cultivator's body doesn't have this attribute in the beginning, but through the consumption of the corresponding elixir, or the cultivation of some special mental cultivation method, the attribute produced in the body is called virtual attribute. Boss Bai said, for example, a person with the wood attribute will have the fire attribute after taking a scorching fire pill, and he can become an alchemist, as long as there are no more than 3 attributes in his body. There would be no mutual restraint, and there would be no cycle. The illusory attribute and the true attribute can coexist. Oh, in other words, the attributes in my body are all virtual attributes? Lenny was stunned. But I haven't taken any elixirs that can change my physique, right? I'm not sure about that. But it says that the attributes inside the body can be tested through a treasure to see if they are real, false, or virtual. Boss Bai said, however, it seems that the attributes inside the body are not real. There's no doubt that your body has the phantom attribute. Lenny nodded. Could it be that his phantom attribute was increased by the art of dragon mastery? This was the only way to explain it. He hadn't taken any elixir that could change his physique. As for the mental cultivation method, there was only this one, so it seemed to be the case. Is there any mention of the solution to the phantom attribute? Lenny asked. There is, but there's no mention of the method. It's only mentioned a little. The specifics are all left in the sex library. Boss Bai said with some regret. The 5 elements sex library? Lenny listened to Boss Bai's words and asked with a slight sigh. That's right. But with my current identity, there's no way to go back and check. Boss Bai said apologetically. I understand that. Lenny nodded. If Boss Bai went back, it was likely that he couldn't come back alive. So Lenny couldn't let him take the risk. What about the solution? Accept the inheritance. Boss Bai said. Under special circumstances, the phantom attribute can accept the inheritance. Whichever attribute in the cultivator's body is the phantom attribute, he can go to the origin of this attribute and stimulate it. If he can stimulate the origin of this attribute, he can receive the inheritance and directly upgrade the phantom attribute in the body to the real attribute. Oh, That means I have to accept the inheritance like rock candy? Lenny asked with some surprise. Yes, but their inheritance means that they have the real attribute or the pseudo-attribute. They don't need to upgrade their attribute. They can directly accept the inheritance and obtain the origin power. But you are different. You need to use a special method, similar to a formation, to stimulate the origin of the attribute in the origin of the attribute, so as to change and upgrade the attribute of your physique. Bossby explained. It's just that I don't have this method in the 5 Elements sect's library. There's also no specific mention in this record of strange stories. Phew. Lenny let out a long sigh. He came to the ancient tomb with a heart full of joy, but in the end, he found out the problem of the physique. In the 5 Elements sect, it was impossible for Lin Yi to obtain the method to change the physique. Don't be too disappointed. With the speed of your strength growth, the day when we return to the 5 Elements sect may not be too far away. Bossby patted Lin Yi's shoulder and comforted him. Well, I understand. Lin Yi nodded. He wouldn't be able to concoct pills without Bossby's news, and he wouldn't be able to change his body's constitution, but it was still hard to accept the fact that hope was dashed. According to Mr. Bai, as long as I find this method, I can definitely successfully change the physique? Lin Yi asked. That's not necessarily the case. Changing one's physique is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even if 2 people with virtual attributes stand together to accept the legacy, one of them might fail, or both of them might fail. Bossby said. Can both of them succeed? Lin Yi asked. Chapter 2696. Bossby shook his head and explained. But the power of origin is different. Any practitioner with the right body type can accept the inheritance and become an inheritor. There's no limit to that. One is the comprehension of the power, the other is the activation of the body type's original element. There's a fundamental difference between the two. The first is personal comprehension. It won't give you anything all of a sudden, but it'll make your training smoother in the future. The other is obtaining the original elemental. I see. Lin Yi, on the other hand, felt relieved. This trip wasn't a waste. At least he knew something about the inheritors. In other words, even if Xiao Xiao accepted the inheritance, as long as she didn't do that dangerous thing, she'd only get the benefit of increasing her training speed. There wouldn't be any downsides. So, after Xiao Xiao accepted the inheritance, Bingtang could accept it as well. As long as Lin Yi could change her body type, she could replace Xiao Xiao. With that thought, Lin Yi made up his mind. He needed to train hard and reach Sky Class as soon as possible, and then continue to increase Bossby, Han Jingjing, and Guan Xian's strength. Chapter Dan, he could ask the 3 of them to help him concoct pills. Although Lin Yi wouldn't be able to become an alchemist, and wouldn't be able to satisfy Bingtang's requirements to be his little wife, Lin Yi didn't really care. He wanted to make Bingtang a little wife. He just wanted to take her down a notch. He wasn't used to her cold and arrogant attitude towards him, but compared to Xiao Xiao's safety, Xiao Xiao was more important. According to this book, this treasure that can identify a practitioner's body type is in the last stone door. Let's go take a look. Bossby said, but he reminded. Here, Zhang Liju also hinted to us that there's a poisonous mist in the last stone door, and those who get hit will lose their vision. But there's an antidote here. As long as it's someone who knows medicine, they can do it. Oh, Lin Yi paused, remembering Yu Huixing back then. It seemed that Zhang Liju had guessed that people would come to this tomb in the future. But these things were left for doctors or refiners. It was left for doctors or alchemists of the same profession. Towards a simple grave robber like Yu Huixing, there was no mercy. If this person had checked the internet records, then they would definitely be on the same path, and naturally wouldn't fall for it. Even if the person in the tunnel didn't check, he would be able to detoxify the poison on his own. The tragic ones were people like Yu Huixing. But what puzzled Lin Yi was that this book had been flipped by someone. Could it be that the people who came to Ancient Tomb knew that this book would hint at the mechanism of the last stone door? So they checked it? Since he already knew about this mechanism, why did he still want to check it out? Could it be that he was here to check the antidote formula? These doubts made Lenny feel baffled. I can't figure it out. However, if that was the case, the grave robber must have been to the last stone door. Let's go and take a look. Lenny took a deep breath. He hoped that the treasure he needed wasn't stolen by this grave robber. Otherwise, it would be a wasted trip. The three of them walked towards the last stone door. They didn't go to the exhibition room, but instead came to the stone door. Lenny placed his hand on the stone door, not pushing it open immediately. He was waiting for the jade to give him a warning signal. School Beauty's personal expert, Chapter 2707. Lost. The item was lost. Lenny couldn't be sure if this grave robber had set up any new mechanisms, or if this person was still in the tomb. What made Lenny relieved was that the jade didn't give off any warning signals. Lenny relaxed a little as he pushed the door open. But Lenny thought of something. Right, Zhang Liju's medical notes said that he didn't have any children, nor did he have any disciples. What's with the 5 Elements sect then? Oh, that's normal, Boss Bai said. In the 5 Elements sect now, only me and Xianxin have disciples. Xuanzhen doesn't have any, but after 1,000 years, the disciples of the 5 Elements sect will call him their ancestor. It's normal. Having no disciples just means that he doesn't have a disciple, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have disciples from the same sect. I see. Lenny nodded. Mr. Bai, take a look. Which one of these is a treasure used to test one's constitution? The white boss looked around the room, and the School Beauty's personal expert, Xiaoke, was also carefully looking at the items in the room. Before the white boss could say anything, Xiaoke spoke up first. Male thief, someone was here too. Oh, Lenny wasn't too surprised. With the precedent of the records of strange events being taken out, it was normal that the items here had been touched. What Lenny was worried about was whether or not the item he was looking for had been taken away. Here it's been touched. Xiaoke had a good memory, and she was good at observing. She pointed at a shelf in front of Zhang Liju's bed. Here, there used to be something like an incense burner, but it's been taken away. Look, there are traces of it being taken away. Oh, incense burner? Lenny and Boss Bai looked at where Xiaoke was pointing. Indeed, on the shelf there was a circular mark. There was no dust on it, but around the original shape, there was a lot of dust. This proved that there used to be something here, but now it was taken away. And the things in this room didn't seem to have been touched. Other than the 2 books that you took, no one else took anything else. Xiaoke said after some thought. Lenny nodded. That was indeed the case. Old He had taken a lot of things from the showroom, and he didn't take anything here. Yu Huoxing came with a purpose, so naturally, he didn't take anything. Xiaoke wouldn't have taken anything, either, or she wouldn't have said that. Ling Shan and Yu Tian wouldn't have touched anything either. It seemed that the item Xiaoke was talking about had been taken away by someone else. Lenny frowned. Incense burner. Suddenly, Lenny thought of something. There was indeed something like an incense burner here. But it wasn't an incense burner. It was a cauldron. Lenny didn't think about becoming a refiner back then, so he didn't pay much attention to this cauldron. Otherwise, Lenny would have taken it away without a doubt. At that thought, Lenny was filled with regret. Lenny suddenly remembered something very important. Chapter 2697. Back then, Lenny had felt a sense of familiarity, as if he had seen it somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. Now that Xiaoke reminded him, he suddenly remembered that the cauldron Yu Coiling Tiger brought back was very similar to the one Lenny saw in Zhang Liju's tomb. As for why it was similar and not exactly the same, it was because Lin Yi's memory was a bit blurry, and he couldn't remember what the cauldron looked like exactly. However, no matter what, Lin Yi understood that he had missed out on a great thing. This cauldron was definitely a great thing, but it was taken away. Shaking his head, Lin Yi put the cauldron aside for now and turned to Xiaoke. Other than that cauldron, was there anything else taken away? I didn't find anything. Xiaoke shook her head. At this time, Boss Bai exclaimed, I found it, the treasure is at the bottom of this shelf. Lin Yi and Xiaoke looked at the direction Boss Bai was pointing at. It was a big round bead, and it looked gray. It didn't look like anything good at all. Even if someone came to rob a tomb, they would probably ignore this stone-like thing. How do I use it? Lenny looked at the big bead in front of him and asked. It's actually very simple. You just need to put your hand on it and chant the mantra. Bossby said. According to the colors that the bead shows, I can determine your constitution. Oh, okay. Lenny nodded and placed his hand on top of the bead, channeling the art of dragon mastery. In an instant, the gray bead changed into a different shape. On the surface of the bead, there were 7 different colors. However, each of the colors was not particularly bright, and the center of each color was hollow. Bossby saw the colors on the bead, and his face was full of surprise and excitement. He didn't say anything for a while, and only after a while did he say, It's the 5 elements and 7 constitutions, but each of them is fake. In your body, there isn't a real or fake one. Oh, 5 elements and 7 elements constitution? Are they all imaginary? What kind of physique is that? Lenny was stunned. He was also shocked by Bossby's words. He actually had the so-called 5 elements and 7 elements physique, but they were all fake, and not a single one of them was real. That's right. According to the records, if each attribute is a color, then this 5-element ball can display a total of 7 colors, representing the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and the ice and fog attributes derived from the water element. Bossby explained, if it's a completely solid bright strip, it represents the true attribute. If it's a half-solid strip, it represents the false attribute. But a hollow, dim strip like this one represents the false attribute. The 5 elements and 7 constitutions means that your body has the attributes of the 5 elements at the same time. But you also have the 3 constitutions of water, ice, and mist. There are 7 constitutions altogether, so it's called the 5 elements and 7 constitutions. After listening to Bossby's words, Lin Yi's eyes widened, but he was a little speechless. His physique was really awesome. Of course, if it was the real 5 elements and 7 constitutions, then it would probably be rare in the world. But he just happened to have the false attribute. The 5 elements could not form a cycle, and it became a situation where they restrained each other, making it impossible for him to become an alchemist. Then this kind of physique. What's going on? Lenny was stunned for a long time before he hurriedly asked. You don't have any real attribute in your body. According to what the cultivation world usually says, you're a cultivation loser. Even if you can cultivate, it's absolutely impossible for you to cultivate to a high level. Although you can create the false attribute, the cultivation speed of the false attribute is obviously slower than that of the real attribute and the false attribute. Bossby said, but you just happen to have so many false attributes, and your cultivation speed is not slow either. It's really strange. Lenny couldn't help but smile bitterly. He knew himself best. His cultivation speed was fast. It seemed to be quite fast, but without the space of the jade pendant, without Wang Xinyan, would his cultivation speed still be fast? The answer was obviously no, because if Lenny didn't have these advantages, he would still be a lone cultivator, and would probably be left behind by other cultivators a long time ago. However, even if you accept the inheritance of the original attribute, it's still very troublesome, because you need to go to 5 attributes and 7 origins to accept the inheritance. It's really too troublesome. Bossby said a little helplessly. In other words, there's no other way for now? Lenny asked. For now, that's it. Bossby spread his hands and smiled bitterly. Well, if that's the case, then I can't force anything. Lenny didn't dwell on it too much. It was already good enough that he could figure out the problem of his constitution. As for turning his constitution into real attributes, Lenny didn't think it was realistic for now. By the way, you just said that an incense burner is missing here? Bossby looked at the place where something was missing and asked. Yes, it's a medicine cauldron. It was still here when I left, but it's gone this time. Obviously, it was taken away by someone who touched the record of extraordinary stories. Lenny said, Oh, a medicine cauldron? Bossby was slightly dazed and then asked, What medicine cauldron? What does it look like? The medicine cauldron here must be something good, but it was taken away by someone. Boss Bai was very regretful. If he came earlier, it wouldn't be like this, right? This medicine cauldron is like this. Right, coiling tiger used to exchange some things with me with a broken one. That broken medicine cauldron should be very similar to this one. I have a picture of the broken medicine cauldron here. As he spoke, Linny took out his phone and showed a picture to Boss Bai. What? Shinnon cauldron? Boss Bai looked at the picture of the medicine cauldron in Lin Yi's hand and widened his eyes in surprise. What Shinnon cauldron? Linny was stunned and thought, is it really something good? Chapter 2698. Boss Bai explained to Linny in detail. Shinnon used this cauldron to make hundreds of elixirs and medicines, and because of the 1,000 years of accumulation of elixir qi, it was said to be able to make unparalleled elixirs. The real one has been lost for a long time, but our sect's founder Zhang Liju had a replica Shinnon cauldron. Although it wasn't as powerful as the real one, it had been passed down by many elixir masters, and it was quite powerful. It was said that it could even make mystic level 1 elixirs. What? It's that powerful? Linny heard Boss Bai's words and regretted it. Linny didn't know what it was, and he didn't know how precious it was, so he just ignored it. But now, Linny realized that he had missed a huge opportunity. Linny even tried so hard to find a third-level cauldron, but he didn't know that there was at least a mystic level 1 Shinnon cauldron replica right in front of him, and he couldn't grab it. Yeah, what a shame, what a shame. Boss Bai didn't really care about the picture in Lin Yi's hand. After all, the cauldron was already broken to this extent, and there was no way to fix it. Even if it was the real one, so what? What he cared about was the replica that Zhang Liju had used before, and he missed it. Whatever, it's fine if we lose it. Maybe this cauldron doesn't belong to us, and it's already good enough that we have it now. Linny was quite optimistic. That's true, I was a bit greedy. Boss Bai nodded. Since this is the tomb of the founder, then everything is arranged by him. We can't force it. Is there anything else we can take away? Linny looked around the room and asked. Nope, including this bead for the test. Leave it here as well. It's useless to take it back. Boss Bai put the bead back to where it was before. Let's go pay our respects to Master Zhang Liju now. Okay. Linny nodded and patted Skybolt Pig's head. Skybolt Pig, let's go pay our respects to Master Zhang Liju. Is there a problem? Last time, when Linny came to the tomb, he didn't go to the main chamber to disturb Zhang Liju's soul, but his identity was different this time. Naturally, he had to follow by Boss to pay his respects, and it was inevitable that he would disturb the owner of this chamber. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig nodded and brought Linny, Boss Bai, and Xiaoke out of the stone room, heading towards the main tomb. He arrived at the entrance of the main burial chamber. Just as Linny was about to stop them from entering, the Skybolt Pig had already warned them. It stood at the entrance of the main burial chamber and shook its head. It squeaked, indicating that no one should enter. Other than the white boss, who was slightly stunned, Lin Yi and Xiaoke both understood that there must be some kind of mechanism in the main tomb, which was why the pig acted like this. After Skybolt Pig opened the mechanism of the stone door, he entered the main burial chamber first. Sure enough, it was familiar with the route. It touched a few parts that weren't too noticeable before returning to the entrance of the main burial chamber and nodded to everyone. GG. Alright, we can go in now. There was a mechanism in this chamber, and Skybolt Pig closed it. Linny explained to the white boss. Oh, I see. The white boss didn't encounter any traps or dangers along the way, and he wasn't a professional grave robber. He didn't know much about these things, and after Lin Yi's words he realized and nodded. The three entered the main burial chamber together, and the stone door behind them closed. This was a very simple main burial chamber. In the corner of one of the walls of the main burial chamber, there was a huge coffin. Near the coffin, there was nothing else. It was so barren that it seemed a little out of place. However, on the stone wall of the main burial chamber, there were a lot of words written. Linny glanced at them briefly, and it was about Zhang Liju's life experiences. Lin Yi and Boss Bai stood together respectfully in front of the coffin, paying their respects to Zhang Liju's grandmaster. Boss Bai was a little emotional, although there was a ranking of the grandmasters in Five Elements sect. Standing in front of the coffin of Zhang Liju, the most famous elixir refiner in history, Boss Bai couldn't help but feel emotional. A sense of pride that had been suppressed for many years rose from the bottom of his heart. In the past, the white boss thought that he was useless, and that he would live the rest of his life aimlessly. At that time, his only goal in life was to find a wood elemental inheritor for the Five Elements sect, and teach him everything he had learned in his life. As for Xuanqin's plot and usurpation, the white boss was really helpless, and he couldn't help the Five Elements sect. If he wanted the Five Elements sect to flourish, the only way was to cooperate with Xuanqin and help the evildoer. However, after meeting Lin Yi, the white boss suddenly realized that his future was bright, and returning to the Five Elements sect, and even regaining control of the Five Elements sect wasn't a difficult thing. All of this was like the guidance of Zhang Liju, sending Lin Yi to him, giving him hope. The white boss swore in his heart that he wouldn't disappoint Zhang Liju's hope. One day, he would revive the Five Elements sect, and let it return to the glory of thousands of years ago. Phew! The white boss let out a long breath, and said, "Let's take a look at Zhang Liju's life experiences and leave. This time it's over." "All right." Lin Yi nodded solemnly. This trip to the tomb was different from last time. Lin Yi had officially joined the Five Elements sect, and had become a part of it. Standing in front of Zhang Liju's coffin, his mood was naturally different. Lin Yi quietly picked up the pig, and looked at the wall with him. The introduction of Zhang Liju's life experiences. This little guy could read, and Lin Yi planned to let him read it as well to recall the past. "You guys read it. I'll just look around here and see if there's anything good." Xiaoke wasn't very interested in Zhang Liju's life experiences. Lin Yi nodded and didn't say anything else. He started reading the words on the wall with the white boss. Zhang Liju's life was dedicated to the study of medicine and elixir refinement. There were countless recipes and elixirs that had been improved by him, and it wasn't uncommon to see lost ancient elixirs reappearing in his hands. Chapter 2699. Good, very good. Lin Yi's eyes turned cold as he looked at the young guard. "What? You don't like it? It's useless even if you don't like it." The guard curled his lips and said mockingly, "An Earth class mid-phase peak? Don't you know what your name is? Don't you know what kind of place this is? Is this a place for you bunch of idiots to mess around? You're used to doing whatever you want outside, and you still dare to act tough in front of me? Boss, why don't we?" Han Xiaopa took a deep breath, suppressing the anger in his heart. He was the young master of a hidden house after all. Although the hidden house used to be the last-ranked hidden house, ever since the Hidden House Summit, their name had shaken the world. Everyone knew that his hidden house had Lin Yi's backing. However, Han Xiaopa knew that Lin Yi wanted to trade here, and he couldn't afford to offend the guards just yet. He couldn't just not go to the market, could he? Han Xiaopa's words clearly showed that he was giving in, and the others could see that he was prepared to give some gifts. Of course, the others were a bit confused as well. They didn't know what these two guards were thinking, suddenly giving an Earth class a hard time. This made the Earth classes behind Lin Yi and Han Xiaopa a little uneasy. Would it be their turn to be in trouble? Lin Yi nodded, and the two guards saw Lin Yi nod, and the disdain on their faces deepened. They thought that Lin Yi had agreed with Han Xiaopa, and that he was giving them some gifts. Of course, there was a condition to this, and their goal was the blue crystal in Lin Yi's hand. The skinny guy had already told them about what had happened, and this was also the reason why these two guards were giving Lin Yi a hard time. They were determined to get the blue crystal, and not only did they want to take it back, but they also wanted to humiliate Lin Yi's group. They wanted to show him who was in charge of this place. Trying to show off in front of the association? Did they still want to come here to trade in the future? However, Lin Yi's giving in was reasonable to them. After all, they were here to make money. Who would dare to openly offend them? Xiaopa, you're right. Some people don't want face, so we'll beat them until they give in. As Lin Yi spoke, he suddenly made a move and slapped the young guard's face, making a crisp sound. Lin Yi's slap was very sudden. The young guard didn't think that Lin Yi would dare to slap him here. It was understandable that Lin Yi dared to hit the skinny guy, since Lin Yi didn't know the skinny guy's real identity. But the two guards represented the association, and they and Yi were the absolute authority here. Did Lin Yi say that? Or was Lin Yi was an idiot? You fucking don't want to? You little bastard, you dare hit me? The young guard covered his face, his eyes full of disbelief and anger. You fucking want to die? With that, the young guard channeled his inner force and punched towards Lin Yi. Earth-class martial technique, 9th form, sky-piercing fist. This young guard was truly enraged. He immediately used his strongest move to attack Lin Yi. His goal was to hit Lin Yi in one hit. Even if he didn't kill Lin Yi, he would at least cripple him. Although the difference between late stage and mid-stage Earth class wasn't that big, the young guard needed to be at the peak of late-stage Earth class to use the 9th form. Lin Yi laughed coldly. He didn't dodge, but used the 5th form of the fiery 8 trigrams palm. Although Lin Yi's strongest technique was the 5th form of the fiery 8 trigrams palm, against a late-stage Earth class master, the 5th form was more than enough. It was equivalent to the 11th form of a normal sky class martial technique. How could it not deal with him? This punch, the young guard gave it his all, not holding back at all. He used all his Jin Qi, and his goal was to kill Lin Yi. In his eyes, Lin Yi was just a small mid-stage Earth class master. And yet he dared to act so rashly. This wasn't just a slap to his face, it was the entire association's face, and the face of his vice president. Boom! The young guard's fist collided with Lin Yi's palm, and a huge amount of Jin Qi burst out from the center of the collision, causing the surrounding people to be pushed back a few steps. These were all Earth-class masters, even Mystic and Golden-class masters. Normally, when had they ever seen a mid-stage Earth-class master clash head-on? The surging aura swept all these people. Although they weren't injured, they didn't feel good either. Puffed! The young guard spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body was sent flying by Lin Yi a few meters away. He landed on the ground motionless, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. However, looking at his arm that had been smashed into a meat patty by Lin Yi, and half of his chest was caved in, even if he was still alive, he wouldn't be far from death. Even if he was saved with a medicinal pill, he definitely wouldn't be able to recover his previous strength. Lin Yi's decisiveness shocked everyone present. Even Han Xiaopa's eyes were full of shock. Wasn't Lin Yi a little too fierce? He said he would kill, and he just killed the opponent. The others, on the other hand, were trying to guess Lin Yi's background and strength. With the strength of a mid-stage Earth-class master, he completely defeated a late-stage Earth-class master, and it was decided in one move. How domineering was this? What kind of strength was this? But Yang Qiqi wasn't too surprised. Lin Yi's performance was already very domineering, and in her eyes, Lin Yi was already a big villain. Lin Yi had forcefully taken her blue crystal, and although he didn't take it directly from her hands, Yang Qiqi still saw him as the main culprit. So it was normal for a villain like Lin Yi to kill these two people blocking the way. Second brother. The older guard let out a shrill howl as he looked at the younger one. He didn't think that Lin Yi would attack just like that, and without mercy at all. His second brother's injuries were very serious, and it was obvious that he wasn't going to make it. The older guard suddenly roared, "Little bastard, how dare you kill my second brother? I'll kill you." With that, the older guard threw a punch at Lin Yi, using the same technique as the younger guard, but with a different style, sky-piercing fist, 10th form. Fiery 8 trigrams palm, 6th form. Lin Yi faced the older guard calmly, using the 6th form of the fiery 8 trigrams palm. Chapter 2700. These ingredients were extinct, and so even with the recipe and the corresponding refiner, no one would be able to make these elixirs. Qi-gathering elixirs were one of them, but through Zhang Liju's hands, some of the extinct ingredients were replaced with existing ones. And although the effect was reduced, it was still able to achieve some of the same effects as qi-gathering elixirs. This was also one of the miracles of Zhang Liju. Back in the day, Zhang Liju had gathered a large number of masters around him. And because of this, with Zhang Liju around, they had endless resources. However, changing the recipe wasn't a difficult thing for Lin Yi, and Lin Yi could easily do it with his abilities. But when it came to elixir, Lin Yi's body made it impossible for him to make elixirs. Lin Yi finished reading Zhang Liju's life story, and so did Boss Bai. He turned to Lin Yi. Let's go?" "Okay." Lin Yi replied and called Yu Xiaoke. "Xiaoke, let's go." But when Lin Yi turned to look at Yu Xiaoke, Lin Yi was shocked to find that Yu Xiaoke was gone. Yes, Yu Xiaoke was gone. In the empty tomb, only Lin Yi, Boss Bai, and Skybolt Pig were left. Lin Yi didn't need to use the light. He could feel everything in the tomb with his eyes closed. And Yu Xiaoke was nowhere to be seen. "Yu Xiaoke!" Lin Yi exclaimed, subconsciously turning his head towards the main chamber's entrance. The stone door was still closed, not open. A chill went from Lin Yi's feet to his head. Where did Yu Xiaoke go? Could this tomb be haunted? Why did Yu Xiaoke disappear into thin air? Boss Bai's scalp went numb as well. This is... Who's behind this? Lin Yi's sharp eyes scanned every corner of the tomb, but he didn't find anything out of place. Other than a giant coffin, there was nothing else. If someone was hiding here, Lin Yi couldn't imagine where they would be hiding. But if no one was behind this, then where did Yu Xiaoke go? Could it be that the tomb robber who came to the tomb and took the Shinnon cauldron didn't leave, and was hiding in this tomb, waiting for an opportunity to attack Lin Yi and the others? Lin Yi broke out in cold sweat. There were only two possibilities. One was that the robber wasn't a human, and that was the only reason why Yu Xiaoke would disappear without a trace. The other possibility was that the robber was extremely strong, perhaps a sky-class late-phase peak. Only a master like that could do something like this under Lin Yi's nose. But even if it was a sky-class late-phase peak, there should be chi waves when they moved. Could it be a physical practitioner? The most important thing was that Lin Yi couldn't understand. In this sealed tomb, even if there was a sky class, how did Yu Xiaoke disappear? There had to be a place for her and a sky class to hide, right? Lin Yi's eyes moved around the tomb, and finally landed on Zhang Liju's coffin. "Master Zhang Liju, please forgive my disrespect," Lin Yi said to himself as he walked towards the coffin. This was the only place in the tomb that could hide someone. Otherwise, the walls, ceiling, and floor of the tomb wouldn't be able to hide anyone. Only this coffin was suspicious. You're saying that Yu Xiaoke went into this coffin?" Bai Boss could tell what Lin Yi was thinking, and asked with a weird expression. "I don't know, but this is the only place I can think of. In the entire tomb, where else could someone hide?" Lin Yi wasn't sure himself, but he could guess. That's right. You're right. Saving people is more important." Bai Boss nodded to Lin Yi, indicating that he wasn't being disrespectful to the Grandmaster. After all, the dead weren't as important as the living. Even if the Grandmaster was in heaven, he wouldn't disagree. Lin Yi nodded and walked in front of the coffin, observing it attentively as he prepared to open the lid. Lin Yi raised his hand to lift the lid, but to his shock, the lid didn't move at all. Although Lin Yi didn't use his qi, it was just a coffin lie. How heavy could it be? Lin Yi didn't use his qi at all. But Lin Yi miscalculated this time. The lid didn't move at all. This time, Lin Yi channeled his qi, but the lid didn't move at all. Lin Yi was surprised and increased the strength of his qi, but the lid still didn't move. Something wasn't right. Lin Yi stopped using brute force and started inspecting the coffin. He wanted to see what was so special about the lid, and why it didn't open even after using so much strength. But after careful observation, he realized to his shock that the lid of the coffin wasn't made of wood. It couldn't be opened at all. In other words, the lid and the coffin were one, except that it was carved into the shape of a lid. Although there was a small gap between the lid and the coffin, if one looked closely, they would realize that the gap was carved on, and the lid and the coffin were clearly one. It would be a miracle if it could be opened. This coffin is dead? It can't be opened. My boss also noticed the strangeness. That's right, it can't be opened, it's fake. Lenny nodded and carefully knocked on the surface of the coffin twice, his face full of shock. This coffin is solid, it's just a big rock, there's no bones in it. What? My boss eyes wide. He didn't know what to say at this sudden turn of events. The two of them prayed for a long time in front of a solid sarcophagus without any bones. What was going on? That's Grandmaster Zhang's bones. I don't know, but there are only a few possibilities. Either this stone coffin was swapped, and the real one was taken away, or this isn't the real tomb of Grandmaster Zhang, but a fake tomb used to confuse people. Lenny said, "Fake tomb? There are so many good things in there." My boss didn't understand, and interrupted Lenny. Without so many good things, how can people believe this is a real tomb? How can it be fake? Lenny asked back. Chapter 2701. Zhang Liju didn't die? That's the last possibility I wanted to talk about. Lenny paused, a strange look on his face. Zhang Liju. He's not dead. What? My boss was quite shocked by Lin Yi's words as he looked at Lenny in disbelief. Not dead? How many years has it been? How is he not dead? Even a Sky-class late-phase peak would be dead by now, right? Sky-class late-phase peak theoretically had the ability to extend their lifespan indefinitely, but that was only in theory. It was limited by the amount of treasures and the amount of qi in the world. It was already quite impressive to be able to live up to 200 to 300 years, and living up to 400 to 500 years was a miracle. Regular practitioners without resources could only live up to 100 years. What if he's a heavenly Tao master? Lenny didn't believe in the existence of heavenly Tao masters before, thinking that it was just a legend, but after hearing the Fire Lion's words and seeing that thing, Lenny finally understood that heavenly Tao masters had existed before. Hiss. My boss took in a cold breath. You're saying that Grand Master Zhang Liju isn't dead, and this tomb is fake to confuse people? I'm not sure if it is, and I don't know the specifics either. I'm just guessing, Lenny said. My boss nodded slowly. Lin Yi's prediction was quite possible. With that thought, my boss asked curiously, then if the person in the tomb is Grand Master Zhang Liju, why would he take Yu Xiaoko away to scare us? I don't know, but maybe he didn't take her away. Lenny shook his head. Grand Master Zhang Liju might not be here anymore. Or it wouldn't have been so smooth when we raided the tomb for the first time. And Skybolt Pig has been living on his own all these years. Huh. Lenny suddenly thought of Skybolt Pig, and quickly gave him a kick. I say, little thing, is Zhang Liju dead or not? Gigi. The Skybolt Pig whimpered and pointed at the ground with its paw, indicating that the stone floor was too hard for it to write. Lenny was about to tell it not to write, and that it only needed to draw words on the ground. Suddenly, the sarcophagus in front of him disappeared. The sarcophagus disappeared into thin air. It disappeared in front of Lenny and Boss Bai. The place where the sarcophagus was originally placed was now flat ground. Fuck. If Lenny wasn't brave enough, he would have pissed his pants. The coffin was gone. Moreover, it disappeared without a sound or warning. Although Lin Yi's eyes were on Skybolt Pig, he could see the coffin from the corner of his eyes. No one came to move the coffin, and the coffin simply disappeared into the ground. It was like the ginseng fruit from Journey to the West falling to the ground. It was gone. Boss Bai was already so old, and he used to be the head of the 5 Elements sect. Even he felt a little breathless at this moment. If Lenny didn't cure his old disease, he might have died of a heart attack. This place is too weird. Boss Bai took a deep breath. But before we find Xiaoka, I can't leave. How about this, Master Bai? Let Skybolt Pig take you away first. Lenny suggested. After all, Boss Bai was here with him, and he didn't have much of a relationship with Xiaoka. There was no need for him to wait here. So Lenny asked him to leave first. How can I do that? Boss Bai shook his head. I'm your teacher. How can I leave you here? It's fine, I'll stay here. Okay. Linny didn't insist and started to carefully examine the ground where the coffin was placed. After calming down, Linny thought of some important questions. Most importantly, even if a sky-class master came here and captured Xiaoke, why didn't Lin Yi's jade warn him? Xiaoke was one of the members of Lin Yi's exploration team. If anyone in the team was in danger, the jade would warn him in advance. Now that Xiaoke disappeared and the jade didn't warn him, did it mean that Xiaoke wasn't in danger? Or could it be that Xiaoke wasn't captured, but left on her own? This was the only explanation that made sense. Otherwise, why didn't the jade react at all? After calming down, Linny started to observe carefully. The ground here was no different from the surrounding ground, but the more it was like this, the more strange Linny felt. If there was a coffin here, then the dust on the ground here should be much less than the other places. There should have been the outline of a sarcophagus here, but there wasn't one here, which meant that there was often dust here, which was why it was like this. In other words, it seemed like there was no coffin here at all. This stone room was more like an empty tomb. However, just as Linny was looking, a coffin suddenly appeared again. It appeared in front of Lin Yi and Boss by just like that, and on top of the coffin stood a person. It was the missing Xiaoke. Even if Lin Yi had a strong endurance, he was still shocked. However, Xiaoke was finally back, which made Lin Yi sigh in relief. Xiaoke, you're finally back, just now you. Male thief. I found a mechanism, a big secret about the tomb. Xiaoke's face was full of excitement. The tomb we're in is only the first floor. There are more buildings below. What? You mean you went to the next floor? Lin Yi was shocked, his eyes wide open as he looked at Xiaoke in disbelief. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that there was another world below the tomb. Not to mention that Lin Yi could find this secret. He didn't even think about it before. But Xiaoke did. Yes, this coffin isn't actually a coffin. It's an elevator. Through this elevator, you can go to the floor below, Xiaoke said. Of course, I'm just making an analogy. This thing shouldn't be powered by electricity. So this thing is a mechanism similar to the elevator, right? Boss Bai was also very surprised and looked at Xiaoke with admiration. How did you find it? Chapter 2702. A different world. And then, you found out about this secret? Lin Yi was very impressed as well. It seemed like bringing Xiaoke back to the tomb was a wise choice. If he came alone, he wouldn't have studied the coffin, and he wouldn't have been able to discover the secret of this staircase. Especially the Strange Tales Chronicle. Lin Yi and Boss Bai were about to leave, but Xiaoke found out that something was amiss. It seemed that Xiaoke was indeed a professional. No wonder old He would pay such a high price to hire a trap master like her to go with him. Yeah, I thought we could open some secret passageway, but I found a staircase. There's a whole different world down there, with a lot of things for women, Xiaoke said. Oh, let's go down and take a look then? Lin Yi was very curious about the space down there, but he was worried that Boss Bai wouldn't want to explore it. Alright, let's go take a look then. Boss Bai was curious as well. He was suspicious about this solid coffin. What if it was as Lin Yi guessed, that Zhang Liju wasn't dead? Could it be down there? If he could see Zhang Liju with his own eyes, Boss Bai would be very excited. Then we'll all stand on top of the coffin. I'll activate the mechanism. And so Lin Yi, Boss Bai, and Xiaoke, as well as Skybolt Pig, stood on top of the coffin. Xiaoke then pressed on the wall, and the coffin started to descend quickly, but the speed was very stable, and there was no impact at all. It was so quiet that people couldn't even feel that the coffin was moving. Lin Yi couldn't help but be amazed by this situation. The design of this tomb was truly amazing. Lin Yi took a closer look, and when Xiaoke pressed the mechanism, there weren't any bumps or bumps. It didn't look like anything was wrong. He didn't know how Xiaoke found out about it. The coffin stopped very quickly, and Lin Yi and the others got off. They were now in an empty stone room. But one look was enough to tell that this stone room was different from the previous one. There were no carvings of Zhang Liju on the walls. Lin Yi frowned as he watched the Skybolt Pig jump down from the coffin. This fella doesn't seem to be surprised at all. Could it be? Skybolt Pig. Did you already know that there was an underground space here? Lenny lowered his head and asked Skybolt Pig. Gigi, the Skybolt Pig was a little helpless, but he still nodded to show that he understood. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Lenny glared at Skybolt Pig angrily. Wasn't this asking him to do it twice? If he had known, he would have gone to the tomb the first time he came. Why wait until now? Gigi. Skybolt Pig used his 2 front paws to gesture something, as if he was defending himself. Write it on the ground with your paws. Lenny didn't understand what it was trying to say. It was too complicated, and Lenny couldn't guess what it was trying to say. Master said to let nature take its course. That was what Skybolt Pig wrote on the ground. Let nature take its course. Lenny sighed and understood what Zhang Liju meant. It seemed like Zhang Liju wanted to let fate take its course. Being able to open the tomb and accept his legacy was a form of fate. Everything else was better to let nature take its course. There was no need to force anything. Skybolt Pig followed his master's wishes and didn't tell Lin Yi that there was another level below the tomb. It was reasonable, and Lenny had no reason to blame him. Forget it, let's go for a walk. Xiaoke, there's no danger here, right? Lenny looked at Xiaoke and asked. No. Xiaoke shook her head. But I didn't go far. I just walked around for a bit before going back. Huh? That coffin disappeared again. Is it okay? White Boss suddenly pointed at the corner of the wall where the coffin used to be. The coffin went back up by itself. It's fine. Xiaoke shook her head. There's a mechanism here. The coffin can come down and pick us up anytime. Oh, White Boss nodded. It made sense. Otherwise, how would Xiaoke go back up? The 3 left the stone room together. Lenny insisted on walking in front. His jade had an alarm function, and he would be able to react immediately if there was any danger. Piglet, you stay with me. If there's danger, you can take care of it in advance. You don't want me to die, do you? Lenny kicked Skybolt Pig. I'm telling you, I'm an Earth class mid-phase peak now. It's only a matter of time before I reach Sky class. When that time comes, I'll be able to raise you to Earth class late phase peak. If you don't want that strength, then pretend I didn't say anything. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig heard Lin Yi's words and started drooling. He nodded, saying that he'll take care of it. Lin Yi was satisfied with Skybolt Pig's attitude, and so the man and pig went to the front to explore the way. Xiaoke and White Boss followed behind, and the 3 of them left the stone room together. After exiting the stone room, a huge hall came into view. It was very spacious. Although it was called a hall, it was more like a training field. There was a place to rest at the side of the hall. Around the hall, other than the stone room that they came out from, there were 3 other rooms. Is this all? Lenny looked at the spacious hall and said in shock. The situation here was out of Lin Yi's expectations. It was completely different from the first floor. This was more like an enlarged version of a house with 4 rooms and a living room. Yes, this is all, Xiaoke nodded. I went to the nearest room, and I think it's a woman's room. Oh, a woman's room? Lenny was shocked. No way. Zhang Liju was quite a playboy, living with a beauty in an ancient tomb? Ahem. White Boss blushed as well. He felt that it wasn't a good idea to talk bad about his grandmaster behind his back. Skybolt Pig, what's going on? Lenny turned to Skybolt Pig. Who's this woman? Zhang Liju said to let nature take its course, but Lenny had already noticed the problem, and Skybolt Pig, in order to level up, couldn't care less. He started to tell the story of this place. Chapter 2703. They all live here, so there are women's things here. The tomb above is just to confuse people. And this is where Zhang Liju Ice Fairy and Snow Fairy really live, Skybolt Pig continued. Oh, the Sect Master of Ice Palace? And the Sect Master of Snow Valley? Ling Yi's eyes went wide. He didn't know who the Sect Master of Snow Valley was. But the Sect Master of Ice Palace? Wasn't that Miss Crystal Candy's master? Yes. They were also the founders of Ice Palace and Snow Valley. And because one of them had the surname Bing and the other Shui, they were called Ice Fairy and Snow Fairy. From then on, everyone who inherited the position of Ice Palace and Snow Valley's headmaster, no matter what their previous name was, would have this surname, Skybolt Pig explained. This Zhang Liju, he's really something. Lenny couldn't help but be impressed. Skybolt Pig, are they really dead? Since there's a place to live here, and there's a teleportation staircase, does that mean that they've been living here for a while? The master and the two mistresses were all Sky-class late-phase peak, and had reached the limit of their lifespan. Even Zhang Liju couldn't sustain the three of them with all the treasures he had, and so the three of them made a deal to build an ancient tomb. And with the thought of success or death, they came here to do their closed-door training, looking for a way to break through Sky-class late-phase peak and step into Heavenly Dao. If they succeeded, then they would become Heavenly Dao Masters, and they could pursue that legendary immortality. But if they didn't, then the three of them would sleep together in this tomb, and this would be their eternal home, Skybolt Pig explained. Then is Zhang Liju dead or not? Lenny asked. Shouldn't be dead, Skybolt Pig wrote after some hesitation. Shouldn't be dead? What do you mean by shouldn't be dead? Lenny asked curiously. If he's dead, then he's dead. And if he's not dead, then he's not dead. One day, they disappeared together, and I'm guessing that they succeeded. After becoming Heavenly Dao Masters, they would go to a place called Sky-class Island. Master has many friends and connections. There should be a way to get there, Skybolt Pig wrote. I see. Lenny nodded. If that was the case, then Zhang Liju was most likely still alive, and so were his two girlfriends. But Lenny was curious. Then didn't you come back here to take a look? I can't. Writing until here, the Skybolt Pig pointed at the stone door in the farthest room and said, that stone door can only be opened by a heaven rank expert. I can't open it. They disappeared from that room. Oh. Lenny was a little surprised. He didn't think that there would be such a mechanism in the ancient tomb. He wanted to go and take a look. Should we go to that door first? Thunder Pig nodded and led the way. Xiaoke was confused. Boss Spy was okay since it was related to the sect, but Xiaoke didn't know what Skybolt Pig was writing at all. The three of them arrived in front of the furthest stone door. Sure enough, next to the stone door, Lenny found a line of words. Simplified recipe for Sky Dao Golden Core. Sky-class late-phase peak masters, mystic first-level refiner, can open this door. Zhang Liju. Sky Dao Golden Core? Lenny looked at the words on the wall in shock and turned to Skybolt Pig. What is this Sky Dao Golden Core? Sky-class late-phase peak masters can break through to Sky Dao after consuming it? I think so. Master has been studying how to make the Sky Dao Golden Core, and the two mistresses have been sparring every day in the training field, trying to find a way to break through to Sky Dao, Skybolt Pig explained. See, Lenny was very excited by Skybolt Pig's words. So Sky Dao really did exist, and Zhang Liju, he actually created the Sky Dao Golden Core. That meant that a Sky-class late-phase peak master could instantly break through to Sky Dao after consuming the Sky Dao Golden Core? Isn't this way too awesome and magical? And this secret was discovered by Lenny. If after some time, Lenny really became a Sky-class late-phase peak master, wouldn't he be invincible after consuming the Sky Dao Golden Core? Of course, this didn't include that so-called Sky-class island. There were definitely a lot of Sky Dao masters there, and Lin Yi's invincibility was only limited to the ancient level and 5 elements sect. So, Master Zhang really made the Sky Dao Golden Core? By boss expression was very weird. According to the sect, Master Zhang Liju left the sect to find the method to make the Sky Dao Golden Core, and no one heard from him ever since. At that time, many people laughed at him, saying that it wasn't practical, and that it was better to work hard and break through to Sky Dao. But Master Zhang Liju firmly believed that he could make the Sky Dao Golden Core. However, with the disappearance of the founder, this matter slowly died down and no one mentioned it again. It seems like he really did it. Lenny was once again filled with hope and confidence for the future. Step by step, there were hardships and dangers, but the heavens rewarded the hardworking, and Lin Yi's hard work brought hope to the heavens. But we can't go in right now. My boss actually wanted to see what the Sky Dow Golden Core recipe looked like. After all, he was a refiner, and he had an unforgettable feeling towards recipes. Plus, my boss's idol and goal back then was Master Zhang Liju. But because of an accident, his dream was cut short. But now, he had hope again. Let's go see the other rooms. Lenny didn't try to break the stone door with brute force. Since Zhang Liju said so, he would definitely take some precautions, and Lenny didn't want to waste his efforts. They went to the stone room in the middle, the one Xiaoka hadn't been to before. As long as there was no danger here, there was no danger. However, looking at Skybolt Pig's actions, there was no danger at all. Skybolt Pig deftly opened the mechanism of the stone door, and the stone door opened. This was a weapons display room. On the wall of this room, there was a huge rack. Inside the rack, there were 3 types of weapons. Yes, there were only 3 weapons, no more, no less. Other than that, there was nothing else in the room. But it was normal. Be it Zhang Liju, Ice Fairy, or Snow Fairy, they were all Sky-class late-phase peak masters. And other than their love for each other, they were all focused on the pursuit of martial arts. Other than weapons, they wouldn't study anything else. Chapter 2704. No, Master is a refiner and doesn't have a weapon. If you really have to talk about a weapon, it would be the Shinnon Cauldron replica. Sky Thunder Pig shook his head and wrote, "The 3 weapons here belong to Ice Fairy and Snow Fairy. Ice Fairy has 2 weapons, while Snow Fairy has 1. However, their mental cultivation techniques and physiques are similar. Their weapons are all water-type weapons, and can be used together." I see. Lenny nodded and walked closer. As expected, 2 of the weapons had the word ice on them, and the other one had the word snow. Although these weapons were useless to Lenny wanted them for himself. These 2 weapons originally belonged to the Ice Palace. And if he could give one to Xiao Xiao, she would be very happy, right? As for the other one, he could give it to Crystal Candy. Of course, she had to be smart enough to return Xiao Xiao. The weapons of Snow Valley were useless to Lenny. He didn't know anyone from Snow Valley. But if he took the good stuff first, it might be useful in the future. If it was stolen like the Shinnon Cauldron, then Lenny would regret it. Skybolt Pig, can I take all of these? Lenny asked. You are my master's fated one. And you are also my new master. Of course, these things are all yours. Skybolt Pig wrote straightforwardly. Obviously, Zhang Liju had told him before. All right, I'll take them then. Lenny said and put the 3 weapons into his bag. Although Lenny didn't know what these weapons were, and how powerful they were. But Lenny didn't care. He'd take them first. But after taking them all, Lenny felt that he was being too greedy. He turned to Boss Bai and Xiaoka. Do you guys want them? I'm a refiner. Why would I need Sky-class weapons? Boss Bai smiled bitterly and shook his head. My weapon is also a cauldron. Then should I give you the real Shinnon Cauldron? Lenny asked. Boss Bai, however, shook his head with a smile. That thing can't be fixed. It's useless. It can only be a collectible. Lil E, you should keep it for yourself. Who knows, it might be useful one day. It's a waste to give it to me. Okay, what about you, Xiaoka? Lenny continued to ask. I don't even know what mental cultivation method I want to cultivate. It's useless even if I have it. I'll tell you when I need it. Xiaoka shook her head. She was greedy, but she didn't want weapons that were useless to the orphanage. Then let's go to the other stone room and see what's going on. Lenny nodded and did not say anything else. With Boss Bai, Xiaoka and Skybolt Pig, they went to the last stone room they hadn't seen yet. Of course, Xiaoka had been there before. After entering the stone room, Lenny saw a huge bed. So, Lin Yi's heart started to flirt with this Zhang Liju. He was such a playboy, hugging women in his arms when he slept at night. From the looks of it, this was where Zhang Liju and the 2 ladies rested. The tomb above was really just an ancient tomb, and Zhang Liju should have been focusing on his research on the Sky Path Golden Elixir. He didn't do any research on other elixirs, so the things above weren't of much use. Here. There's a big box with a lot of gold and silver hairpins and jewelry. Can I take them? Xiaoke looked at Lin Yi hesitantly. Ugh. Lin Yi didn't know if he should take these things. It was fine if he took the sky-class weapon, but these were Zhang Liju's personal jewelry. It wouldn't be right if he took it, right? Boss Bai, on the other hand, had heard about Xiaoke from Lin Yi before. He respected this girl very much, so he nodded. Yi and I are both from Five Elements sect, and Zhang Liju's and the two grandmothers' belongings are also Five Elements sect's belongings. You can take anything you want. Since Ancestral Master and Ancestral Mother left, and didn't take these things with them, it means that these things aren't very important, and shouldn't be very useful to them. That's true. Lin Yi looked at Skybolt Pig again, and realized that this little guy didn't seem to mind at all. It seemed like these things really weren't important, but thinking about it, it made sense. Liju, Ice Fairy, and Snow Fairy all went to pursue Heavenly Tao, and these things weren't really necessary. Then take it. Okay. Xiaoke happily opened her bag, and put all the jewelry inside. These things could be sold for a good price. After Xiaoke was done, Lin Yi said, Master Bai, let's go. It's time to leave. Okay. Boss Bai nodded. I'm very happy to know that Zhang Liju might still be alive. If he could come back to Five Elements sect, I believe Xianxin and the others would restrain themselves. Haha, if he was willing to come back, he would have come back a long time ago. He wouldn't have waited until now. Lin Yi didn't have much hope. That's true. Let's go. Boss Bai said, and the group went to the stone room that they came from. Xiaoke pressed on the wall again, and not long after, the coffin appeared in the room. No one was surprised by this, and they stood on top of the coffin. Xiaoke didn't need to press the mechanism, and after a while, the coffin moved on its own, returning to the main chamber on the upper floor. Now they were sure that there wasn't any danger here. The people who came here before had probably left long ago. All their worries were just for scaring themselves. Just as he was about to leave the tomb, Lin Yi started to covet the bead that tested for constitution. It was a good thing, after all, and he wouldn't be happy if it was stolen as well. Should we take that bead as well? Boss Bai didn't want to take it at first, but then he thought that someone might come in and steal it. He hesitated and said, If you need it, we can take it too? Then let's take it too. Lin Yi nodded. After all, he wanted to test other people's attributes. For example, Mingyao and Yushu. Lin Yi had promised to help them find a suitable practitioner's arts, but he didn't know their attributes. Chapter 2705. After all, most of the attributes were hidden, and without special methods, one wouldn't be able to see them. One major attribute could be split into many smaller attributes, like Bingtong's Ice Heart, Xiaoxiao's Yin Cold, Auntie Qing's Ice, and so on. These were all under the water attribute. These attributes, on the other hand, couldn't be tested on the bead at all. Only the major attributes could be tested, and so there might be situations where the practitioner's arts didn't match well. But with this bead, one could at least know the direction of training. Of the 5 elements, only the water attribute was complicated. The others were fine. Lin Yi took the bead, and left the tomb with Boss Bai and Xiaoke. The process was quite smooth, and they didn't meet any danger or obstacles. The 3 entered the tomb at daybreak, and now that they came out, the sky was already filled with stars. This time, the 3 returned with great rewards. Xiaoke got a bunch of jewelry, and Lin Yi got the answer to his constitution, 3 sky-class weapons, and a bead for testing constitution. Boss Bai, on the other hand, got an exciting new, Master Zhang Liju might not be dead. After sending Xiaoke back to the orphanage, Lin Yi and Boss Bai returned to Donghai. Xiaoke didn't want to leave, but with Boss Bai there, she didn't keep the male thief for long. She just held his hand reluctantly, and let him leave. Looking at the disappearing car, Xiaoke sighed. Was this love? If only the male thief was Lin Yi, there wouldn't be so many things to worry about, but he wasn't. She didn't know how to deal with Lin Yi, who was getting more and more insatiable. But thinking about the jewelry in her bag, Xiaoka felt happy again. These were all antiques. And even if they weren't priceless, they were still priceless. This trip wasn't a waste. On the way back, Boss Bai was still immersed in the exciting news that Zhang Liju might not be dead. What do you think? Should we look for Grandmaster Zhang's whereabouts? If we could find him, Five Elements sect would have searched for him a long time ago. Zhang Liju is a heavenly Dao master. We won't be able to find him easily. Linny was calm. He didn't expect to find Zhang Liju. If Zhang Liju wanted to appear, he would appear. If he didn't want to appear, then so be it. No matter how you look, it's useless. Skybolt Pig had been in the tomb for 1,000 years, and he had never seen Zhang Liju. This meant that Zhang Liju had no intention of coming back. Otherwise, even if he didn't come back to the tomb, he would have gone back to Five Elements sect a long time ago. That's true. Boss Bai nodded. I was too impatient. Oh right, Teacher Bai. Why don't you tell me the story between Zhang Liju and that ice and snow fairy? You're from the Five Elements sect, so you should know this story very well, right? Linny asked. He was very curious about Zhang Liju's love story. Of course, Xiao Xiao was part of the reason. Linny was Zhang Liju's successor, and Xiao Xiao was the future Ice Palace Master. Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, was the future Palace Master of the Ice Palace. Linny felt like he was a little similar to Zhang Liju, but he didn't have a wife named Shuegu. Master Zhang Liju, the Elixir Refinement Saint. The love story between him and the two masters' wives has been passed down for thousands of years. Master Shui and Master Ice were fellow disciples, and they were quite close as well. But they fell in love with the same man, and that man was Master Zhang Liju. Boss Bai told the story of the past, but what he knew was only from the sect's records. It wasn't the official records of the sect. But these two were both prideful people, and they didn't want to share their love with others. Perhaps it was because they were fellow disciples, and they didn't want to lose face. Oh, then didn't they live together after that? Linny was surprised. I only found out about this from Skybolt Pig. They all followed Grandmaster Zhang Liju. I only knew that Grandmaster Zhang Liju married Grandmaster Ice. Boss Bai said with a bitter smile. However, the Snow Ancestor chose to back off later. The reason was that the Ice Ancestor had a special constitution. She was poisoned and could not live past 20 years old. Therefore, after the Snow Ancestor learned the news, she did not want to compete with her, and gave the man to the Ice Ancestor. Poisoned? Coldine body? Linny paused. He remembered Xiao Xiao's special body. Miss Crystal Candy had said that Xiao Xiao's body was similar to their master's. It seemed that this was true. That's right, Coldine body. Boss nodded. That was why Grandmaster Snow chose to back off. But Grandmaster Zhang Liju was quite a character as well. He brought Grandmaster Ice to the Ice Spirit Mountain, where the Ice Palace is now, and found the Fire Spirit's fruit, successfully prolonging Grandmaster Ice's life. On the mountain, Grandmaster Ice accidentally obtained the heritage of the mountain, discovering the ancient ruins of the Ice Palace, and established her own sect with it. But after eating the Fire Spirit fruit, her body became very weak. After all, she really shouldn't have eaten that fruit. It's only effective when you're going crazy. Taking it at normal times wouldn't help at all, and would instead cause great harm. So, even after Master Ice became a Sky-class late-phase peak, her body wasn't that good. Master Zhang Liju had to keep making Ice Heart Jade Bone pills for her to keep her from falling sick. So Master Ice didn't die, and Master Snow went to find them again? Linny couldn't help but ask curiously. No, according to the records, Master Snow had already said that she was going to give up. With her proud personality, why would she lower her head? Boss Bai shook his head. Plus, Master Snow wanted to forget them. So she created Snow Valley and Heartless Arts. Heartless Arts. Linny blinked. That's right. As the name suggests, Heartless Arts means that the person who practices it will abandon all emotions. No longer having love. Boss Bai said. They'll be like an ice mountain, hard for people to get close to. Chapter 2706. I don't know about that. Maybe something happened later on. And Grand Master Shui returned to Li Ju's side. But I don't know the specifics. Bai Boss said. It seems like the three of them broke through Sky Class late phase peak together and stepped into Sky's Tao, living the life of a celestial couple. Merciless arts can be broken? Lainey was still a bit puzzled. Training in merciless arts and still being able to fall in love with Zhang Liju was quite miraculous. Who knows? Bai Boss said. Maybe the legends are wrong. Lainey nodded. This was the only explanation. At the foot of the snowy valley, a patrolling disciple found a Jeep Wrangler SUV slowly moving towards the snowy valley. The patrolling disciple immediately came to the front of the Wrangler SUV and stretched out his palm, signaling the Wrangler to stop. Chapter 2716. School Beauty's personal expert. This is Snowy Valley's territory. If you are a traveler or an explorer, please stop here. The patrolling disciple's words sounded polite, but there was an irresistible sense of authority in it. This is Snowy Valley? Fum looked at the patrolling disciple in surprise. There was no one on the road, and she almost thought that they had gone to the wrong place. In this world of ice and snow, this person is only wearing a white unlined garment? Isn't he cold? Xingwen said, surprised. I'll go take a look. Kong Xiaobo said to the two and got out. But as soon as Kong Xiaobo got out, a cold wind blew at his face, and he couldn't help but shiver. He quickly adjusted his shirt and said, Hello, you're a disciple of Snowy Valley, right? We're heading to Snowy Valley. Can you please lead the way? Heading to Snowy Valley? Who are you? What are you doing here? The patrolling disciple paused. Kong Xiaobo and the others didn't look like practitioners at all. They didn't have the aura of a practitioner at all. They looked more like tourists. Visiting an old friend. Kong Xiaobo said. Visiting an old friend? Where are your old friends? The disciple asked curiously. It's Tang Yun, my girlfriend grew up with her. We're here to visit her. Kong Xiaobo explained. What? Are you here to visit Elder Tang? The disciple was shocked when he heard Tang Yun's name. His expression changed from indifference to respect. Please follow me, but you need to wait in the guest room. I need to report this to my superiors. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Kong Xiaobo said politely. Although Tang Yun was very arrogant here, Kong Xiaobo wouldn't make things difficult for these ordinary patrolling disciples. Kong Xiaobo went back to his car and followed the patrolling disciple to the guest room of the Snow Valley. He rested there for a while the patrolling disciple went to report. Of course, he wasn't going to report to Tang Yun, but to the Grand Elder. Although Tang Yun had a high status in Snowy Valley, the Grand Elder wanted to prevent Lin Yi's visit from affecting Tang Yun's training. So anyone who came to visit Tang Yun had to go through the Grand Elder's review and approval. The patrolling disciple went through Elder Zhang on duty to find the Grand Elder. That's right, Elder Zhang was still on duty today. Although Elder Zhang was good, he didn't dare to go against the Grand Elder's orders. You're saying that the three people outside are Tang Yun's friends? The Grand Elder frowned after hearing the disciple's report. One man and two women? Could it be Lin Yi, Chu Mengyao, and Yushu again? Elder Zhang, come with me. If it's them, tell them to go back. Yes, Grand Elder. Grand Elder. Elder Zhang hurriedly said. Thus, the Grand Elder and Elder Zhang came to the guest room and saw Kong Xiaobo, Xiaofan and Lu Xinwen. The Grand Elder let out a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't Lin Yi, it was fine. She was afraid that Lin Yi would instigate Tang Yun to leave Snowy Valley and stop training. That would be a huge loss for her. You three, this is the Grand Elder of Snowy Valley. Elder Zhang introduced to Kong Xiaobo and the others. Nice to meet you, Grand Elder. Kong Xiaobo's tone was respectful, but he didn't think much of it. This was the old hag that Yushu talked about. She didn't look like someone easy to get along with. School Beauty's personal expert 2716-inch. What's your purpose for coming here? The Grand Elder asked directly. We haven't seen Tang Yun for a long time. We just want to see her. We don't have any other purpose, Kong Xiaobo said respectfully. School Beauty's personal expert was first published on www.guli.cc. Mobile users can visit WAP. Guli.cc Oh, it's fine if you want to see her. She's at a crucial point in her training right now, and I don't want her to keep thinking about the past. She might think of Lin when she sees you guys, and that would be very painful for her. It would affect her training as well. If she were to go berserk, we wouldn't be able to bear the consequences, the Grand Elder said with a wave of his hand. Ah, going mad? Kong Xiaobo was shocked. He didn't think that he would go mad just by looking at Tang Yin. Wasn't this too scary? That's right. You guys are Tang Yin's friends. There's no harm in me telling you in detail. The Grand Elder frowned slightly and said, Come to think of it, you should know that when Tang Yin was training, she should have taken the senseless grass medicine liquid. But she didn't take it. Instead, she gave it to Lin Yi, so there are some obstacles in her training now. The Grand Elder couldn't help but sigh. Tang Yin practices the emotionless art. She has emotions in her heart. It will affect her training. The training process will be abnormally painful. If she can't forget Lin Yi, the pain will continue. If she goes mad, she will lose all her power. If it's serious, her body will explode and she will die. What? Explode and die? Kong Xiaobo, Xiaofan, and Lu Xinwen widened their eyes in shock. Of course, going mad and dying from body explosion is a common thing in the training world. It wasn't that the Grand Elder lied to them. It really existed. It was just that the Grand Elder exaggerated Tang Yin's situation. Back then, the founder of the sect created the emotionless art under this kind of pain. She didn't explode and die. It was just that she grew up in pain. Her situation was slightly different from Tang Yin. She didn't get love. Tang Yin already got love. However, the two's training situation was similar. Tang Yin wouldn't explode and die. At most, it would be more painful and slower. Chapter 2707. He originally wanted to see Tang Yin, just a visit from an old friend, but he didn't expect that it would bring such a disastrous consequence to Tang Yin. Naturally, Kong Xiaobo wouldn't act rashly. Then, let's go back. I'm afraid that's the only way. Grand Elder shrugged helplessly. Then, can you let us see from afar? Xiaofan was unwilling. She had just recovered from her illness, and Tang Yin left, so she didn't have a chance to spend time with Tang Yin. Do you think that with Tang Yin's current cultivation, she won't be able to find you? Grand Elder asked. Xiaofan was stunned, but she understood. Yes, Tang Yin was no longer the Tang Yin of the past, but a powerful practitioner. The school bell's personal expert sighed. How about this? If you want to see Tang Yin, it's not impossible, but you have to do as I say. Otherwise, if something happens to Tang Yin, you and I won't be happy. Grand Elder said. All right, Grand Elder, please say it. Kong Xiaobo nodded and immediately agreed. You are Tang Yin's friends, so you are naturally familiar with her. She will definitely listen to what you say. So I hope that you can say more words to Tang Yin to make her give up on Lin Yi. Only then can she cultivate in peace. Grand Elder said. Only when she gives up can she cultivate in peace and won't go mad. Kong Xiaobo listened to Grand Elder's words and suddenly hesitated. You can't be delusional. Tang Yin can go back and reunite with Lin Yi one day, right? That's impossible. Grand Elder struck the iron while it was hot and said, Let's not talk about Lin Yi forgetting Tang Yin. Tang Yin herself has also cultivated the heartless tactics. In the future, when the heartless tactics is completed, she will no longer have feelings. What you are doing is to help Tang Yin get rid of her heart demon as soon as possible and step into heaven realm. All right. However, we can only tell the truth. It's impossible to make things up. Kong Xiaobo hesitated for a moment, but still nodded in agreement. From his point of view, what the Grand Elder said was the truth, and she was definitely doing it for Tang Yin's sake. He couldn't harm Tang Yin. As for Lin Yi and Tang Yin, the Grand Elder had also said that it was impossible, so Kong Xiaobo didn't have to worry too much. I just want you to tell the truth. You don't have to make things up. You just have to make Tang Yin give up. You can decide how you want to say it. I don't need to teach you. Besides, I don't know much about you, the Grand Elder said. Okay. Grand Elder's words made Kong Xiaobo not doubt it. In fact, the Grand Elder did not lie to Kong Xiaobo. What she said was the truth. At the end of the day, it was for Tang Yun's own good. If that's the case, then come with me, the Grand Elder said faintly. I hope that for Tang Yun's cultivation, you won't say anything inappropriate. Don't worry about that. We are not people who don't know what to do. Kong Xiaobo naturally didn't come here to think of a way to make Tang Yun go back. He only came to visit Tang Yun. Even Ming Yao and Yushu didn't want Tang Yun to come back. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hidden it from Lin Yi. This matter had to be concealed. Otherwise, to Lin Yi, it would be harming Lin Yi. His current strength was not enough to fight against Shuegu. Tang Yun's cultivation was getting harder and harder. She wanted to cultivate quietly, but she couldn't forget Lin Yi. In her heart, she didn't want to forget about Lin Yi. She wanted to remember Lin Yi forever. Remember that afternoon under the tree. Remember the stars in the night sky of West Star Mountain. These were the most beautiful and precious memories of her life. Even if she couldn't see Lin Yi again, she wanted to remember these sweetness, the sweetness that belonged only to her, because there was another person who would forget them forever. The Grand Elder also tried to persuade Tang Yun to take the senseless grass, but Tang Yun refused. This was also the reason why the Grand Elder asked Kong Xiaobo and the others to persuade Tang Yun. At this moment, Tang Yun was resting. A female disciple who served Tang Yun knocked on the door. Elder Tang, the Grand Elder said that a few of your old friends are here to visit. Oh, my old friends? Tang Yun paused. Could it be Ming Yao and Yushu? Thinking of this possibility, Tang Yun got excited. If they came, would Lin Yi come? Yes, a man and 2 women are waiting in the guest room. The Grand Elder wants you to go over, the female disciple said. Ah, okay, I'll go now, Tang Yun said excitedly. A man and 2 women. It must be Lin Yi, Ming Yao and Yushu. Tang Yun quickly left the room and rushed to the guest room without waiting for the female disciple. This surprised the female disciple. In the Snow Valley, Tang Yun only did cultivation every day. She was a quiet person and didn't like to talk. Why was she so excited today? The beauty's personal expert 2717, however. This was Tang Yun's business. As a female disciple, she couldn't ask. She could only follow behind quietly. Tang Yun quickly arrived at the guest room. The Grand Elder and Elder Zhang were already waiting at the door. Seeing Tang Yun, the Grand Elder said faintly, Elder Tang, your old friends are inside. I won't disturb you anymore. The Beauty's Personal Expert was first published on www.guli.cc. Mobile users can visit wap.guli.cc. With that, she left the guest room with Elder Zhang. This surprised Tang Yun. Lin Yi was here. Would she let her meet with Lin Yi alone? When Tang Yun entered the guest room with doubt, her doubt was instantly solved. It wasn't Lin Yi, but Kong Xiaobo, Xiaofan and Lu Xingwen. Tang Yun instantly understood. No wonder the Grand Elder was so relaxed. If Lin Yi was here, would she let her meet him? Tang Yun couldn't help but slap her forehead at the thought, smiling bitterly. She was too worried about Lin Yi. Plus, Lin Yi had Ming Yao and Yushu to help him out. Why would he think of her? Kong Xiaobo, Xiaofan, Xingwen, so it's you guys. However, Tang Yun was also very surprised to see them. She had been bored for a while. She didn't want to talk to anyone except for her adoptive parents and birth mother. She didn't have any common topics. Other than asking about Xue Li's cultivation, there was nothing else to talk about. Yun, are you okay? Xiaofan was also excited when she saw Tang Yun. She ran over and held Tang Yun's hands with Lu Xingwen. Chapter 2708. First, Xiaofan and Xingwen miss you, so they wanted to see you, Xiaobo explained. Secondly, Ming Yao and Yushu wanted us to come see you. They couldn't get in touch with you guys, so they wanted us to ask how you're doing. They're a little worried. Tang Yun's eyes flashed with a hint of melancholy. I miss you guys too. I miss Yaorao and Shu. I miss Lin Yi even more. But I know that Lin Yi and I are destined not to be together in this life. How is he? Is he okay? Tang Yun couldn't wait to hear about Lin Yi. Boss, he's fine. Kang Xiaobo didn't know what to say. What's his strength now? Right. I heard that the hidden House Yu, and House Zhao sent out a few masters to look for Lin Yi. But they didn't find Lin Yi, right? Has this matter been resolved? Tang Yin was very worried about Lin Yi's safety. When she first came to the Ice Palace, she could still contact Ming Yao occasionally, but the Grand Elder cut off her contact with the outside world, so she didn't know what was going on. Chapter 27:18. School Beauty's personal expert. Although she knew that Lin Yi was fine, she still felt uneasy. Hidden House Yu? Hidden House Zhao? Hidden House Yu? Kang Xiaobo smiled and shook his head. Boss is very strong now. He doesn't care about these families anymore. Now the Hidden House Han, House Pai, and House Zhuang have all become his lackeys, and he can kill Sky-class early-phase masters in one hit. What? Lin Yi can kill Sky-class early-phase masters in one hit? What's his strength now? He's already above the middle stage of Heaven stage? Tang Yun's eyes flashed with disbelief, but also with excitement. No, boss is only an Earth-class mid-phase peak, but he's very strong. He can kill Sky-class early-phase masters in one hit. As Kang Xiaobo spoke, he told Tang Yin everything Lin Yi had been up to recently. Tang Yin, on the other hand, was listening with great interest. She would ask a few small questions from time to time. She heard that Lin Yi was already so strong. It seemed that as long as Lin Yi didn't provoke the ancient sects, then the hidden power wouldn't be able to bring any harm to Lin Yi. Although the Great Elder had left, she was still a peak late-stage Heaven-class master. She could hear the conversation in the room from afar. When she heard that Lin Yi was actually able to instantly kill a Heaven-class early-stage master, with his Earth-class mid-stage peak strength, they were also very shocked. Wasn't Lin Yi's growth a little too fast? The Great Elder actually didn't pay much attention to Lin Yi, so she didn't know what happened during this period of time. Now that she heard Kang Xiaobo's words, she realized that Lin Yi was actually so strong, but the Grand Elder wasn't worried at all. After all, Lin Yi's level was too far below hers. She could easily kill a Sky-class early-phase master, and Lin Yi was only an Earth-class mid-phase. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't do anything. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't surpass the barrier brought by the level of strength. If that's the case, I can rest assured. Tang Yun heard Kang Xiaobo's words and nodded in relief. She nodded, gratified. Lin Yi was so strong that she didn't have to worry anymore. Right, Xiao Xiao told me to get Lin Yi a big wife. Who's his big wife now? Is it Yao Yao? That? Kang Xiaobo was also worried about how to persuade Tang Yun. Tang Yun asked this question, so Kang Xiaobo followed up. No, Lin Yi's big wife is Wang Xinyan. Wang Xinyan? Tang Yun was stunned. She had never heard of this name before. Where did this person come from? Yes, she is called Wang Xinyan. She is boss's university classmate and deskmate. It was confirmed through Yao Yao and the others. Currently, she is also living in boss's villa. I heard that she is sharing a room with boss. Kang Xiaobo said truthfully. He didn't want to agitate Tang Yun, but he remembered the Great Elder's orders and had no choice. Ah, they are already living together. Tang Yun heard this news, and a desolate expression flashed across her face. Did he have someone else he liked? After all, she wasn't his first woman. However, Tang Yun felt relieved after that. It was fortunate that she wasn't. Otherwise, how would she be able to save Lin Yi? If something had happened between her and Lin Yi, would she still be able to stay here and train? Would the Shuegu use this as a condition to save Lin Yi? Obviously not. Although Tang Yun didn't know who Wang Xinyan was, she didn't know how Lin Yi met Wang Xinyan. How did he get to know Xinyan? He was someone that Ming Yao and Yushu both approved of, so there had to be no problem with his character. This was Xiao Xiao's idea, right? I think she told you too? Seeing that Tang Yun was struggling, Kang Xiaobo quickly tried to persuade her. Yes, I know. It's fine. Lin Yi and I are not fated to be together. We won't be able to see each other again. As long as he is happy, it's fine. Tang Yun smiled and said. Yin Yun, it's good that you understand this. Since you've chosen this place, then train hard. Xinwen also tried to persuade her. I understand. Don't worry. I'm not an impulsive and irrational person. I'm no longer the little girl that didn't know anything. Haha. Tang Yun thought back to the time when she was afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't want her and threw her phone on the ground. She felt that she was really naive back then. Chapter 27:18. School Beauty's personal expert the Grand Elder heard the conversation from afar, satisfied with Xiaobo and Xinwen's reply. Tang Yun's reply made her sigh in relief. It seemed like Tang Yun could stay here and train in peace from now on. She wouldn't have to worry about accidents anymore. Yun, why do I feel that your body is very cold? Is this the consequence of practicing heartless arts? At this moment, Xiaofan was no longer as happy as when they first met. After calming down, she realized that although Tang Yun was very warm towards them, there was an unnatural coldness emitting from her body. It made people not want to get close to her, as if she was a big block of ice. School Beauty's personal expert, first published on www.guli.cc, mobile users visit WAP. Guli.cc. Yes, Xiaofan, you noticed? Tang Yun smiled helplessly. This is what heartless arts is like. So, when I practice it to the extreme, even if Lin Yi wants to be with me, he won't want to be with me anymore. There's an unnatural aura around me that makes people not want to get close to me. Chapter 27:09. No wonder Lin Yi dared to say that as long as he had one breath left, he could be healed. It seemed like he wasn't bluffing. Zhu Lao felt that even if he had one breath left, Lin Yi could still save him. At this moment, he finally understood why Lin Yi, Wu Qintian, and Chen Yutian broke through miraculously when they were about to be crippled. It was because of this. No wonder when Lin Yi was injured he was fine. Lin Yi could heal himself. Zhu Lao's mouth twitched as he recalled how Lin Yi pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger after he was injured to lure the enemies to his doorstep. This was clearly a trap. Lin Yi had probably healed long ago and was sitting at home pretending to be sick, waiting for the enemies to come looking for trouble. However, he misunderstood Lin Yi. Before Lin Yi discovered General Wei Wu's secret, he really did plan to run away with his whole family. I'm fine. I'm completely healed. Big brother, my meridians are healed, and they're even thicker than before. It's more beneficial for cultivation. Zhu Lao looked at Zhu Lao's elder brother excitedly. Healed. That's great, that's great. Zhu Lao's elder brother let out a long breath. The Zhu brothers' parents passed away early, and the two brothers depended on each other. Although Zhu Lao didn't die, he couldn't cultivate anymore, and his lifespan would definitely decrease. Zhu Lao was older than him, but he had to watch his younger brother pass away first. He felt bad thinking about it, but now it was great. He didn't expect his decision to bring his younger brother such a great opportunity. Don't talk nonsense. Now use your own arts. I'm going to increase your strength. Lin Yi said faintly. Yes, boss. Zhu Lao didn't doubt it anymore. He was ready to follow Lin Yi wholeheartedly. With a boss like this protecting him, he wouldn't be afraid of anything in the future. He was like a cockroach that wouldn't die. When he was about to die, he would teleport back to the city and find Lin Yi to revive himself. Who could be more powerful than him? Zhu Lao's elder brother could feel his brother's happiness, but he didn't believe that Lin Yi wanted to increase his brother's strength. He didn't doubt that Lin Yi could heal him, since there was Pai Zhihai's example. He was happy but not surprised, but increasing his strength was different. Lin, boss, aren't you going to test us? Zhu Lao's elder brother hesitated. It was too good to be true. Don't doubt the people you use. Don't use the people you suspect. If you two are going to go against me, then I can easily take your lives. Lin Yi smiled. Although his tone was calm, it made the Zhu brothers shiver in fear. Yes, Lin Yi could even kill a sky-class master in one hit. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake for him to kill the two brothers? With that thought, they were relieved. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of them betraying him at all. If they betrayed him, he would just kill them. Don't worry, boss. Zhu Lao Swear that we two brothers will follow your lead from now on. Zhu Lao quickly said. Haha, I'll see the result, Lin Yi said indifferently. However, the more indifferent Lin Yi was, the more the Zhu brothers respected him. If it was Zhao Qibing, he would be happy to put on a fake act and say some touching words before promising some benefits. As he spoke, Zhu Lao channeled his practitioner's arts and was shocked to find that his strength was increasing rapidly. Pure qi flowed into his body from his meridians and circulated in his body as he channeled his practitioner's arts, turning it into his own. Elder Zhu was shocked. Before this, he had never heard of anyone increasing strength like this. Wasn't this a human cauldron? But it was different from a human cauldron. A human cauldron usually sacrificed their own strength to help others. But Lin Yi wasn't stupid enough to give his strength to him. The only possibility was that Lin Yi wouldn't lose his strength, but he could increase the strength of others. How terrifying was that? Zhu Lao had just recovered from his injuries and didn't have much qi in his body. But with Lin Yi helping him level up, he became a golden class master in the blink of an eye. He was only one step away from mystic class. Fast, it was simply too fast. Zhu Lao was channeling his practitioner's arts so Elder Zhu could see his strength. Elder Zhu's eyes widened as he looked at Zhu Lao's sudden increase in strength. He felt gratified and a bit envious at the same time. But Lin Yi had said that he was an Earth-class master, and he couldn't increase the strength of an Earth-class master. So Elder Zhu could only pray that Lin Yi would step into Sky class as soon as possible and increase his strength. In one morning, Zhu Lao went from a useless person to a mystic late-phase peak. Lin Yi gave him a small qi-gathering pill, and under Elder Zhu and Lin Yi's protection, he swallowed it and became an Earth-class master. Boss, Zhu Lao was so excited that he couldn't speak. Elder Zhu told him that Lin Yi could not only heal, but also increase his strength, but he was still skeptical. Only after experiencing it would he know how magical it was. He didn't even know how to thank Lin Yi. Alright, you've been out for a long time. Take these 2 potions back with you. As for this pill, take it in advance. Lin Yi handed a pill and 2 packets of sealed medicine to Boss Zhu. This was what he'd just concocted. Okay, thank you, boss. Elder Zhu took the things from Lin Yi and said excitedly. The rest is up to you guys, but if you follow Shu's instructions there shouldn't be a problem, Lin Yi said. Normal people wouldn't be able to recognize the potions I make, not even Zhao Yaowang. Of course we trust you. The 2 brothers trusted Lin Yi without any reservations. Lin Yi drove to school, while the Zhu brothers went back to the hidden house. The Zhu brothers had been in high spirits a moment ago, but now they were back to their old self. His disguise was quite good, and if they didn't check his meridians, no one would be able to tell that his injuries had healed and his strength had increased. Of course, Yaowang wouldn't check his meridians if he had nothing better to do. Elder Zhu and Zhu Lao quietly returned to the hidden Zhao house while Elder Zhu rushed to see the old head of House Zhao. Chapter 27:10. Lu Xinwen had never been in a relationship before. With her domineering personality, it was rare for her to find a suitable boyfriend. She didn't know the taste of love. Elder Tang, you should go train too. The Grand Elder appeared in the guest room and said to Tang Yun. He then looked at Kong Xiaobo and the others. I'm sorry, but Elder Tang's reception time is up. She needs to train now. Please stay here for now. Tang Yun wanted to spend more time with Kong Xiaobo, but she couldn't ignore the Grand Elder's words. My mom is here too. You guys are familiar with her. I'll let her talk to you guys. Auntie is here too? That's fine too. Lu Xinwen nodded. They couldn't disturb Tang Yun's training. Okay, I'll go first. Tang Yun stood up apologetically. I'll let my mom walk around the valley. The scenery here is very beautiful. Okay, Yun, you can go now, Xiaofan said. The Grand Elder left with Tang Yun. She'd achieved her goal, and naturally didn't want Xiaobo and the others to talk to Tang Yun any longer. Talking too much would cause Tang Yun to miss Lin Yi again. What would she do? So the training time was just an excuse. The Grand Elder's real goal was to stop Tang Yun from talking to them. Not long after the Grand Elder and Tang Yun left, Tang Yun's foster mother, Wang Yujia, came to the guest room. She was a ruthless person in the snowy valley. Even the Grand Elder didn't dare to offend her. Out of sight, out of mind, out of mind. The Grand Elder couldn't do anything to someone like Tang Yun. He couldn't beat or scold her, but he couldn't chase her away. Tang Yun's personality was gentle and gentle. The Grand Elder could control her, but Tang Yun's mother was a stubborn woman. She only cared about her family. She would take whatever she saw in the valley. She would order everyone around, as if the valley was her own home. What made the Grand Elder helpless was that Tang Yun's catchphrase was, "I'm here with Linny. I'm taking Tang Yun away. I'll ask my daughter Bingtang to come and tear down your snow valley." As a result, the Grand Elder's strategy for dealing with people like this was to coax her. As long as Tang Yun focused on her training, and Mrs. Tang didn't cause any trouble, then they'd let her do as she pleased. The snowy valley had the money and the goods, so it didn't matter if they gave her some. As for ordering others to do things for her, it didn't matter. Tang Yun was an elder of the Snow Valley, and the mother of an elder naturally had such power. It was just that the Snow Valley didn't have such a situation in the past, and the parents of those elders were all dead. Moreover, Mrs. Tang's other identity was the birth mother of Ice Palace's palace master Bingtang. With such a powerful identity, even the Grand Elder wouldn't dare to do anything to her. Hence, Mrs. Tang became the Queen of Snow Valley. The disciples of the Snow Valley now all knew that there was a person in the Snow Valley who was even more powerful than the Grand Elder. If they encountered him, they must not provoke him, or else they would die very, very miserably. Xiaobo, Xiaofan, Xinwen, you're here. Tang Yun's mother was happy to see them. Why isn't Linny here? Boss, Auntie, you know that boss drank the senseless grass. It's Tang Yun's idea. We can't do it on our own. Kong Xiaobo said awkwardly. Oh, I know, but when he's strong enough, he can come and take us away. Or he can take over the Snow Valley. Oh right, I also have a daughter who can marry him. When the time comes, the Ice Palace and Snow Valley will all be his, and this matter will be resolved. Mrs. Tang said. Now, only Tang Yun's mother dared to say such outrageous things. The disciples of Snow Valley didn't dare to refute her. Everyone was used to it. Even the Grand Elder didn't dare to mess with her. Who were these disciples? Ugh, that's true. Kong Xiaobo wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and nodded. Tang Yun's mother was amazing. She had another daughter who was going to marry Lin Yi. Right. Oh right, I've gotten a lot of treasures. Bring them back for Lin Yi. Let him eat them, and increase his strength. I'll give him something good, Tang Yun's mother said. You guys can walk around too. If you see something good, bring it back. Don't be shy. Kong Xiaobo was speechless. Tang Yun's mother was so amazing. Although Kong Xiaobo knew that Tang Yun's mother was like this, he didn't like it. But today he realized that it was a good thing. Let's go. I'll bring you around, Tang Yun's mother said. She brought Kong Xiaobo, Xiaofan, and Lu Xinwen out of the guest room to tour Snow Valley. This was the first time the three of them entered Snow Valley. They couldn't help but admire the scenery. It was really beautiful. It was much more beautiful than those ski resorts. It was a natural scenery. There were many disciples busy in the valley. But when they saw Tang Yun's mother, they avoided her. You bring us some fruits and delicious food. Tang Yun's mother pointed at a patrolling disciple. Yes, Mrs. Tang. The patrolling disciple quickly nodded and left. He then came back with a fruit platter and a few cups of freshly squeezed juice. Kong Xiaobo and the others were dumbfounded. Tang Yun's mother took the fruit platter and passed it to them. Eat it. The fruits here are all natural and pollution-free. It's very delicious. Bring back a few boxes when you leave. We can have as many as you want. If it's not enough, we can pick it now. Okay, Kong Xiaobo said weakly. He took 2 fruits and passed them to Xiaofan and Lu Xinwen. He also took one for himself. The fruits here were really delicious. Kong Xiaobo ate one and didn't want to put it down again. After eating the fruits, Tang Yun's mother brought Kong Xiaobo, Xiaofan, and Lu Xinwen to the herb garden. Tang Yun's mother was here for her weekly plundering. Today was the day, so Tang Yun's mother brought the three of them here. Coincidentally, a few disciples of the Snow Valley were walking towards them. They were pushing a small cart, which was filled with fresh medicinal herbs that had just been picked from the Snow Valley's herb garden. You stop right there. Tang Yun's mother put her hands on her waist and blocked the disciples. Madam Tang, the Snow Valley disciples hurriedly asked in fear and trepidation, "What's the matter?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.